the throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1426 Heavy Chips. Elder Days' response stunned Xia Xingchen and Ga. The Alliance doesn't plan to take care of this matter? Why? Xia Xingchen looked incredulous. Elder Days is just a rotating elder. His attitude does not represent the attitude of other elders or the true attitude of the Alliance. However, he will report this matter to the Alliance leaders truthfully. Ga turned to look at Xia Xingchen. Now that things have come to this, let's go back and wait patiently for news. If there is no news within 3 days, I have other ways. That's the only way. Xia Xingchen sighed, followed Ga out of the Elders' Hall, and returned to the room to rest. 3 days. Xia Xingchen spent it in torment, and these 3 days seemed as long as 3 years. With his state of mind, he was also restless, and kept looking for Ga to ask if there was any news from the Alliance leaders. Ga was also very anxious, like an ant on a hot pot, constantly checking the new information on his bracelet, but was disappointed every time. On the 3rd day, Ga and Xia Xingchen finally determined that this matter had fallen into oblivion, and the Alliance leaders had no reaction. Did Elder Days not inform the higher-ups? Everyone in the Glory team gathered together to discuss countermeasures, and everyone was worried. It's possible. Ga nodded slightly, but it's not time to despair yet. I still have a way to contact the upper echelons of the Alliance directly. Captain, you want to find that person? Aang has been in the Glory team the longest, and he knows Ga's past, and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. There's no other way. I can only find him. Ga sighed, turned to everyone and said, I used to be a member of the Halo, and I had a good relationship with the captain of the Halo, Bizzo. But, Bizzo and I have different philosophies. People with different paths cannot work together, and eventually we parted ways. However, Bizzo once owed me a big favor. I'll go find him. I can ask him to help inform the elders I know. The captain is a member of the Halo. Zuemo also joined not long ago, and his face was shocked. More than a member. He was once famous, and was Bizzo's right-hand man. Alas, it's a pity that it's all in the past. Captain, do you really want to put down your dignity, break your oath, and go find Bizzo? Aang snorted coldly and asked seriously. Dignity? My dignity, what is it in front of the rise and fall of the human race? Gal immediately laughed. Don't talk about dignity. Even if I die in exchange for the future of mankind, I'm willing. Everyone was silent, looking at Gal. Sacrifice yourself for the race. This kind of words, everyone will say. But how many people can do it? The members of the Glory team knew that Gal was not just talking. He really thought so in his heart. I'm going to find Bizzo. You wait for my news here. Gal stood up and strode out of the room. Xia Xingchen looked at Gal's back and understood in his heart how much courage it took for this man who abandoned the past to ask for help from his old friend. You know, the Glory team was targeted by the Iron and Blood team and could not leave the Generation spaceship to perform the mission. Gal didn't even think about asking Bizzo. However, all Xia Xingchen could do at this time was to pray that Gal's method would work and make the Alliance really pay attention to the invasion of the mechanical race. An hour later, Gal returned to the team room, his face as hen, and walked in like a zombie. He opened a bottle of whiskey on the table and drank it. Everyone's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Brother Gal, how is it? Xia Xingchen helped Gal sit on the sofa and asked when his face looked a little better. I met Bizzo, and he was happy to return the favor. Then, he took me to meet another elder. However, this elder's reaction was the same as Elder Days', and he looked indifferent. Gal held his head in his hands and said painfully, I don't understand. Do the senior promoters really think of themselves as creatures different from humans? How can the rise and fall of mankind have nothing to do with them? It is a failure. Xia Xingchen was stunned where he was. After a long time, he clenched his fists again, looked around, and regained confidence. Everyone don't need to worry. I have already thought of a way out. The Alliance was unwilling to intervene in the invasion of the mechanical race. Although it was beyond my expectations, it is not difficult to understand. It doesn't matter. Even if the Alliance doesn't intervene, the Galactic Empire will definitely not sit idly by. Galactic Empire? Everyone present was stunned. Debbie was surprised and said, "Isn't the Empire in a civil war with the Northern Empire and is busy with its own affairs? How can it have time to take care of other things? Besides, the regent named Qin Yun is not an easy person to deal with. It is harder to get him to send troops to the Infinite Star Abyss to deal with the mechanical race than to ascend to heaven. Yes, it's not that we look down on the strength of the Empire, but the Empire is already riddled with holes and is on the verge of collapse." Mark also interrupted. "A rotten boat has 3 pounds of nails. I was born as a soldier of the Empire and a Marquis of the Empire. I know that the Empire has a deep foundation. However, it is indeed a troublesome thing to persuade Qin Yun to send troops. Therefore, I'm ready to surrender." Xia Xingchen said word by word in a deep voice, "I will use myself as a bargaining chip in exchange for the Empire to send troops." Surrender? Everyone didn't know Xia Xingchen's identity. They looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. "I'm sorry, I have been hiding it from you. My identity is too special, and I have no choice but to do it. My real name is Xia Xingchen." Xia Xingchen bowed in front of everyone and said, "Ah, Xia Xingchen. It's you. The most dazzling general in the Empire. Marquis Xingchen, Princess Qinjana's guardian knight. He once bravely broke into the Shire Neon Star execution ground and rescued the princess from the tiger's den by himself." Everyone's eyes were shining, and they knew all about Xia Xingchen's deeds. The people at the bottom of the Empire were fanned and controlled by the media and could not get the truth of the matter. On the Empire Skynet, many people slandered Xia Xingchen and slandered him as an unforgivable demon. However, all the members of the Alliance are legendary mecha masters. Who can become a legendary is not super powerful, profound, and has huge power support behind him. They all have their own sources of information and know the truth of the matter. Xia Xingchen's deeds, in the circle of legendary mecha masters, most people applauded. "I didn't expect you to be such a big shot." Debbie laughed tenderly. "No wonder you were indifferent to my beauty. How could I possibly compare to Princess Crossing? We have guessed your identity. We thought you were from some noble family. Unexpectedly, you are Xia Xingchen. You are my idol. A real idol." Zuemo smiled and said, "I also served in the Imperial Army. I'm a few years older than you. You are a general, but I'm a soldier. The gap between people is too big." Zuemo was being modest. He was a legendary mecha master, so how could he be an ordinary soldier? Of course, Zuemo's military rank was definitely not as high as Xia Xingchen's. Chapter 1427 Selection Qualification. "I don't agree." Gar suddenly stood up and said loudly, "Brother, why don't you agree?" Xia Xingchen was slightly startled, with a look of surprise on his face. "You want to sacrifice yourself and use yourself in exchange for Qin Yun's troops? Naive. Too naive. I admire your spirit of sacrifice. However, Qin Yun's bad character is well known. Can you guarantee that Qin Yun can fulfill his promise as you wish?" Gar scolded. Xia Xingchen bit his lips and fell into silence. He knew very well that with Qin Yun's character, it would be impossible for him to fulfill his promise. However, what else could he do? Take his friends on the Star Domain Arc and unite with the Galaxy Freedom Army to resist the army of the mechanical race? This is the last resort. If all other roads are blocked, Xia Xingchen can only take this last road. Actually, there is still some hope for the Alliance's attitude. Gar calmed everyone down, asked Xia Xingchen to sit back on the sofa, and said, "Although the elder I met was indifferent, I also got some information from him. The Alliance is not unaware that the mechanical race is a huge threat. However, the top leaders of the Alliance are now preparing for a big event. They have no energy to pay attention to other things." "What is it?" Everyone was surprised. What could be more important than the threat of the mechanical race? "Awakeners." Gar was silent for a while, and 3 words came out of his mouth. "The Alliance is preparing a large-scale event to select awakened people." Awakeners? What are awakened people? Everyone looked confused. They had never heard of any news about awakened people. In addition to the top leaders of the Ascendant Alliance, only the captains of the top-ranked teams and their confidants know about the existence of the Awakeners. As for what an awakener is, I don't know much either. I only know that the top leaders of the alliance will regularly select awakeners from the entire alliance. Those who can become awakeners are either powerful and strong, or geniuses with great potential. And becoming an awakener means that you can receive the baptism and become a top leader of the alliance directly. Gar said in a deep voice. Top leaders of the alliance? Elders? Xia Xingchen asked. No. It's the existence that surpasses the elders, the real ascendants. The people who control the real power of the alliance. Gar looked at Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen was shocked, with thousands of thoughts in his mind. After a long time, Xia Xingchen looked up at Gar. Brother, if you become an awakener, pass the baptism, and become a real ascendant, can you let the alliance take action to deal with the mechanical clan? I don't know. Gar smiled bitterly and shook his head. The glory team is too weak and is not qualified to know more. And we have not received an invitation and are not qualified to participate in the selection. The room fell silent again. Haha, let me answer this question for you. The electronic door of the room suddenly opened and an old man's laughter came. The team's exclusive room can only be entered by team members and elders. All the members of the glory team were present. The only one who came was the elder. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the door. Ah, Elder Kao Kang. It's Elder Kao Kang who came in person. Elder. Seeing the old man in front of the door, it was Kao Kang, one of the powerful elders of the alliance. Everyone bowed and greeted him warmly. Haha, no need to be polite. Kao Kang smiled, looked at Xia Xingchen, and walked straight towards him. Elder. Xia Xingchen knew that Kao Kang was looking for him, so he bowed quickly. Well, I'm glad you're back. Kao Kang nodded slightly. I found you. If anything happened, I would be guilty. Thank you for your concern, Elder. Xia Xingchen whispered. Well, let me answer your question. As long as you can become an awakener, you can influence the Elder Council. If you can pass the baptism and become an ascender, your power will be even greater. You will be the leader of the alliance, and the entire alliance will obey your orders. Resisting the mechanical race? It's not a big deal. Kao Kang looked at Xia Xingchen with a smile on his face. Elder, I want to participate in the selection. How can I get the qualification? Xia Xingchen's eyes flashed with joy. Hey, I came here specifically for this matter. Kao Kang sighed. There are only 24 qualifications in the entire alliance for this awakener selection. Each of the top 10 teams in the alliance will get one qualification, which takes up 10. The remaining 14 qualifications were all predetermined by the Elder Council. Originally, I reserved one qualification for you. The purpose of letting you join the alliance is to see your talent and believe that you can definitely become an awakener. What about now? Xia Xingchen frowned slightly. From Kao Kang's words, he knew that something must have changed. Your qualifications have been taken away. Not only your qualifications, but also your alliance identity, have all been cancelled. Kao Kang sighed. Who? So bold? Xingchen's identity has been cancelled? Who has such great power? The members of the glory team were all indignant and spoke up for Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen's chest rose and fell slightly. He was also angry that his qualifications, which originally belonged to him, were taken away by others for no reason. However, he was still able to control his emotions. He took a breath. His face was cold, and he looked up at Kao Kang. Elder, may I ask what is going on? The person who took away your qualifications is named Guan Yu, a member of Iron and Blood. Guan Yu and you joined the alliance at the same time. He is the only 2 3-star rated members, and has great potential. Of course, Guan Yu's foundation in the alliance is very shallow. His qualifications were obtained by Halis for him. Your alliance identity was also cancelled by Halis. Kao Kang said. Guan Yu, Halis, Iron and Blood. It's them again. Xia Xingchen could hardly control his emotions when he thought of Halis's ugly face. Veins on his forehead throbbed, and his eyes were red. Elder, I don't understand. On what basis did Halis cancel Xingchen's alliance status? Gar interrupted. Death. Kao Kang said, Halis cancelled Xia Xingchen's alliance status on the grounds of death. According to what he said, he saw Xia Xingchen being devoured by the Zerg Queen with his own eyes. He must have died. Of course, his testimony alone is not enough. However, Bisso of the Halo team and Chris of the Freelancers are willing to testify, and with a video clip, the alliance has to conclude that Xia Xingchen is dead. Once Xia Xingchen dies, the qualification I reserved for him is gone, and falls into Guan Yao's hands. But I can still enter and exit the Generation spaceship freely, Xia Xingchen asked in confusion. I left you a way out. I don't believe you will die. That's why I convinced the Council of Elders to keep your identity information temporarily. But I really can't keep your qualification for selection as an awakener. Cao Kang shook his head slowly. There's nothing I can do. This is fate. Maybe God doesn't want you to become an awakener. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1428. The first team in the Alliance. Hey Liz, you bastard. You actually resorted to such despicable means. How shameless. Shameless old dog. Everyone was stunned, shocked by Hayless's shameless behavior, and then they could no longer bear it and started cursing. Okay. Gal waved his hand, asking the team members to shut up, and said angrily, swearing is the behavior of the weak. What's the use? In the final analysis, we are too weak. If we were stronger, how dare Iron and Blood bully us like this? Take away the qualification of Xingchen. The team members were speechless and bowed their heads in silence. The law of the universe is that the weak are preyed upon by the strong. Weakness is the original sin. From a single biological individual to a race, being weak will be bullied and eventually go to extinction. Elder, is there any way to get the qualification for selection now? Xia Xingchen was also very angry, but he did not curse because he knew that cursing could not solve the fundamental problem. It's difficult. It's difficult. You can think of a way to buy the qualification for the selection with points, but you need a lot of points, at least 10 million points. Cao Kang shook his head and said, 10 million points. Hearing this number, everyone present took a breath. Is there any other way? Xia Xingchen asked. The other way is even more unrealistic. For example, if the Glory team enters the top 10 in the league overnight, they will naturally get a selection qualification. But is this possible? Cao Kang smiled bitterly and waved his hand. Don't think about this unrealistic thing. You don't have a chance to participate in this selection. Don't worry, I will definitely help you get the qualification next time. Next time. Gar muttered in a low voice, complaining. I don't know when the next selection of awakened people will be. Brother Gar, you are right. A person has limited opportunities in his life. Some opportunities, once missed, will be missed forever. I must participate in this selection. Definitely. Xia Xingchen's eyes shone with a strange brilliance, and he puffed out his chest, as if he had a plan in mind. Ah. By the way, I've heard some rumors. You seem to be hunting a lot of worker bugs in the Aranda continent, in exchange for a lot of points. Could it be that you have 10 million points? Impossible. This is too exaggerated. Huoli suddenly shouted. Yes, yes, yes. I also heard that a new member of the Alliance is hunting worker bugs and has exchanged a lot of points. Mark shouted loudly. Xingchen. The total points of our team have increased a lot recently, and the ranking has also improved a lot. The person who is crazy about hunting worker bugs must be you. Gar also looked at Xia Xingchen. That person is me. Xia Xingchen said bluntly, but I don't plan to use 10 million points to buy the qualification for the selection. It's too bad. Xia Xingchen turned his head and looked at Cao Kang, saying, Elder, please do me a favor. What favor? Let me be frank. Although I'm an elder, I can't help you get a lot of points. Cao Kang said. Not points. I have a batch of star-swallowing insect crystals. Elder, can you let the Alliance buy it at the original price? Xia Xingchen asked. Buy at the original price? Of course. Don't say the original price. If you have a large quantity of insect crystals and good quality, I can also ask the Alliance to give you extra rewards. Well, tell me first. How many points are you going to exchange? Cao Kang patted his chest and promised. As an elder with real power, He still has this power. I'm a person who wants to be the first. I'm going to exchange 100 million points. Xia Xingchen smiled faintly and said, 100 million? Including Cao Kong. Everyone present suspected that they had heard it wrong. How much did you say? Cao Kong looked suspicious and reconfirmed. Xia Xingchen stretched out a finger and said lightly, I said 100 million. 100 million points. Hiss. This time, everyone heard it clearly and took a breath of cold air in unison. What is the concept of 100 million points? Everyone present knew it very well. This means that the team ranking of the Glory team will soar like a rocket, surpassing all teams and directly becoming the first team in the alliance. And 100 million points can be exchanged for anything in the alliance mall. This included the white tiger Zhengjin that Xia Xingchen had always dreamed of. As for the points spent to enter the meditation room, for Xia Xingchen, it was a drop in the bucket and he didn't need to take it seriously at all. But 100 million points? Could Xia Xingchen really come up with so many insect crystals? Everyone was skeptical. Even Ga, who believed in Xia Xingchen the most, couldn't help but doubt it. Wow. Xia Xingchen smiled slightly, and as he waved his hand, thousands of silver white diamond crystals appeared. These are male insect crystals, a total of 100,000. Just enough to exchange for 100 million alliance points. Elder, you can take a look first. How is the quality of these insect crystals? Cao Kong picked up a silver insect crystal and put it in front of his nose to sniff it. His body trembled slightly because of excitement, and his voice trembled. Top quality. These are all top quality insect crystals with excellent quality. Do you really have 100,000? Of course. Xia Xingchen said lightly. Now is not the time to joke. Okay. I will go back and convene an elders meeting immediately. Purchase your batch of insect crystals and give you corresponding points. As for the extra rewards, I will tell you after our elders have discussed it. Don't worry, you will definitely be satisfied. Cao Kong was very excited and hurried towards the direction of the upper elders house. Generation spaceship, airport. In the center of the airport, a huge light screen displayed the names and points of the top 10 teams. Halo, Iron and Blood, Freelancers. The position of the three major teams in the alliance is very stable, with points far exceeding other teams, and their ranking has not changed for a long time. The ranking of the 7 teams behind them occasionally changes, but the changes are not big. Moreover, no matter how they change, the top 10 teams are still in the top 10. The 3 major teams are the first echelon. The 3rd to 10th places are the second echelon. After the 10th place, every 10 places are a echelon. As for the Glory team, it is between the 5th and 6th echelons, and is a second-rate team. The airport is the most prosperous place in the alliance. Spacecrafts enter the port from time to time, and the entire port is bustling. Ding. After a pleasant sound, a soft female voice came from the direction of the screen. Congratulations to the Glory team for improving their ranking. Congratulations to the Glory team for improving their ranking. The broadcasting voice was like a repeater, repeating this sentence over and over again. Huh? What's going on? Has a team's ranking been improved? Just report it once. Why do you keep reporting it? There's something wrong with the optical computer. Glory team? Never heard of it. The legendary mecha masters at the airport all looked up, their eyes fixed on the screen, with surprise on their faces. Chapter 1429, a historic moment. The names and points rankings of all the teams are displayed on the huge screen at the airport. The points ranking is dynamic and changes all the time as the teams complete their tasks and obtain alliance points. The rankings of teams often fluctuate, but the changes are not big. When a team's ranking rises, it is indicated by a green upward triangle arrow. When a team's ranking drops, it is indicated by a red downward triangle arrow. The symbol behind most teams is a horizontal line, which means that the ranking remains unchanged. At this moment, the legendary mecha masters in the airport were all shocked to see that a team named Glory was rising rapidly in the rankings like a rocket, surpassing one famous team in the alliance after another. And the repeated prompt sound was also because the ranking of the Glory team continued to rise. Glory team entered the top 30. My god, the Glory team's ranking is still rising. It has passed the 20th place mark. There is no sign of stopping. Is it not enough to enter the top 20? Is this small team going to impact the top 10 to compete for the qualification for the Awakened Trials? Impossible. The Glory team is unknown, not strong, and there are no decent strong people in the team. How can it challenge the top 10 teams? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Countless people looked up at the big screen. Each of them was amazed, talking about it, and asking for information about the Glory team. Most people were not optimistic about the Glory team and thought it was absolutely impossible to enter the top 10. However, reality gave them a hard slap in the face. 13, 12, 11, 10th place. The upward momentum of the Glory team did not stop, and it successfully entered the top 10 of the league standings, becoming one of the top 10 teams. No way. What the hell? Is it really that the Alliance's optical computer is broken? What is the origin of this Glory team? How did it jump to the top 10 in the league? Is there a conspiracy behind it? Don't talk. The Glory team hasn't stopped yet, and the ranking is still rising. The whole airport was completely in an uproar, but people soon quieted down. They were completely stunned and forgot to talk. They stood there blankly, with only the green arrow and their eyes constantly climbing up, surpassing one after another of the top 10 powerful teams in the league. 8th. 7th. The ranking is still rising. Could it be that the Glory team's ranking will enter the top 3, shake the status of the 3 major teams? It's hard to say. Let's wait quietly for the result. No matter what the final ranking of the Glory team is, this is a major event in the history of the Promoter Alliance. The whole audience was silent, no one spoke, and the friends communicated with each other through mental fluctuations. No one was willing to use language to break the tranquility of this historic moment. Congratulations to the Glory team for improving their ranking and entering the top 3. In the entire airport, only the mechanical prompt sound remained, constantly congratulating the Glory team for achieving a high ranking. 3rd. Surpassed the freelancers, and became the 3rd. It's already 2nd. Iron and Blood are also left behind. What about the Halo? Can the Halo hold up? Keep the 1st place in the Alliance? Countless eyes gathered on the screen. They felt their blood boiling to be able to witness this miraculous moment with their own eyes. It was so exciting. So exciting. Congratulations to the Glory team for improving their ranking and ranking 1st. The mechanical prompt sound finally quieted down after broadcasting this. The air in the entire airport also solidified. Everyone was stunned, motionless, and didn't even blink, as if time had stopped. Tick tock, tick tock. Time passed by second. After a long time, congratulations to the Glory team. The new 1st team of the Alliance is born. Incredible, really incredible. The legendary Mecha Masters present finally reacted from the shock and cheered one by one. Looking at their excited appearance, they may be happier than the members of the Glory team. The reason is simple. The 3 major teams of the Alliance have long occupied the top 3 of the Alliance, oppressing small and medium-sized teams and bullying newcomers, and their reputation has long been bad. However, the strength of the 3 major teams is too strong, and the small and medium-sized teams dare not speak out, but hope in their hearts that one team can stand out and break the solidified monopoly of the 3 major teams. Unfortunately, no one has been able to do it until today. The Glory team came out of nowhere and became the 1st team of the Alliance from an unknown small team. Everyone thought that either the Alliance's optical computer had a malfunction or a miracle happened. Look at the points of the Glory team. 100 million. Galaxy. Where did this team get so many points? It's incredible. Is there really something wrong with the optical computer? Don't worry. The team originally ranked 10th Elemental Fury has been squeezed out. They will definitely not give up and will appeal to the Alliance to find out the whole story. We just need to wait for the result. That's right. The Glory team suddenly became the 1st in the Alliance. Even if Elemental Fury doesn't stand up, or a freelancer, Iron and Blood will not give up. This matter must be explained. Many people present were very calm and thought that this was probably a misunderstanding. The Glory team became the 1st in the Alliance, but it was just a flash in the pan, and would soon be beaten back to its original state. Moreover, if the Glory team played any tricks, then all members of the team would receive the due punishment. Beep, beep. In the team room, the bracelets of all the team captains beeped at the same time. Even the captains who were on a mission outside received a message informing them that there was a big change in the ranking of the Alliance's teams. What does the ranking change have to do with me? Aura is always number 1 anyway. This time I got the reward for the Star Devouring Queen mission given by the Alliance and made a lot of money. Can anyone shake my position? Bizzo was practicing in the Elder meditation room when he suddenly heard a buzzer. He looked down and saw the bracelet on his wrist flashing, and a trace of displeasure appeared on his face. However, due to his responsibility as a captain, Bizzo stopped meditating and looked down. Suddenly, Bizzo was stunned. The Aura team's ranking dropped to second. The Glory team's ranking rose to first. Glory team? Gal's team? Gal actually surpassed me and became the first team in the Alliance. How is this possible? Bizzo was no longer in the mood to meditate. He stood up, left the meditation room, and went directly to the upper elders meeting area to question the Alliance leaders face to face. Anyone can surpass Aura and become the first in the Alliance. Freelancers can. Even Iron and Blood can. I can accept it. Only Gal can't. I want this traitor to be trampled under my feet forever. The veins in Bizzo's temples kept throbbing. Chapter 1430, A War Without Gunfire. It's not just pesos. Hellas and Chris were drinking in the bar of the Generation spaceship, discussing the selection of awakeners. They both received the message from the bracelet at the same time. After reading the message, both of them looked up in astonishment and looked at each other stupidly. Chris, did you receive that message too? Hellas looked at Chris. Well, is there something wrong? My team was squeezed out of the top 3. Chris was in disbelief. The first place in the Alliance changed hands, and it turned out to be the Glory team. How is it possible? Hellas shook his head. No, I want to meet the elders. Find out about this. I'll go too. Chris also stood up with a serious expression. The freelancers were squeezed out of the top 3, which not only meant that the team could no longer enjoy the treatment of the 3 major teams in the Alliance, but also made Chris lose face, as if someone had punched him hard in the chest. When Hellas and Chris arrived at the Upper Elders Council, they found that except for them, the captains of the top 10 teams in the Alliance had basically expired. The captains of the 2 teams were on missions outside, and the deputy captains were also present instead. As for the teams after the top 10 in the Alliance, it was not that they did not want to question the Council of Elders in person. It was because they did not have the qualifications to meet the Elders. However, all the teams also filed a complaint, asking the Alliance to give them a satisfactory answer to this incident. Swish. 14 beams of light fell from the sky, illuminating the figures of the 14 Elders. These were the 14 Elders of the Ascender Alliance. The Council of Elders they formed was nominally the highest authority of the Ascender Alliance. The presence of 14 elders at the same time was something that had never happened before, and it could be said that it gave enough face to the 10 captains. As the captain's representative, Bizzo stepped forward and asked loudly, "Elders, we want to know how the Glory team suddenly got 100 million points and became the first in the Alliance. What mission did they perform? How could they get such a huge amount of points?" In the center of the 14 elders, Elder Kao Kang stood up, still smiling. "I can tell you responsibly. The points of the Glory team were all obtained through legal channels, and there is no problem. The Glory team's points ranking is temporarily ranked first, which is also the result of our strict review and calculation. Are you satisfied with my answer?" Elder Kao Kang responded positively, which was equivalent to the Alliance recognizing that the Glory team had become the first team in the Alliance. However, such a reply obviously could not satisfy the captains. What they wanted was not a response, but the truth. Bizzo's attitude was very firm. He joined other captains to force the Elder Council to explain what mission the Glory team had completed and what ratio the points were exchanged. The details of the Glory team's mission are private. The elders have the obligation to protect the privacy of the Alliance members. However, since you are not willing to give up, then an elder next to Kao Kang stood up and explained. The Glory team handed over 100,000 male Star Devourer crystals. The Alliance exchanged them at the regular ratio of 1 crystal to 1,000 points, and a total of 100 million points were exchanged. Not a cent more, not a cent less. No discount was given to the glory team, and there was no trick. Are you satisfied with this explanation? 100,000 male star devourer crystals? Galaxy. Where did they get so many crystals? The weakest male star devourer is at the planetary level. Even the 3 major teams will inevitably suffer damage when hunting male insects. 100,000 male insect crystals. 100,000 male insects. Just thinking about it makes my scalp numb. Too exaggerated. The 10 captains looked at each other and exclaimed that it was impossible. But Basso, Hellas, and Chris were stunned, and after their faces changed slightly, they winked at each other. The 3 of them were all peerless masters, with excellent IQ and strength, and they understood it immediately. These 100,000 male insect crystals must be related to Xia Xingchen and the crazy Zerg Queen. The Zerg Queen was most likely alive and enslaved by Xia Xingchen. Damn it. This kid fooled us all. Basso gritted his teeth, resentful in his heart. That queen was originally mine. 100 million alliance points are also mine. Xia Xingchen, you dare to steal my things. I will never stop fighting you. Hellas was the most angry, because the 3 major teams joined forces to enslave the queen, and Basso and Chris each gained something, only he was completely at a loss. And it was a blood loss. Chris was silent, his face was uncertain, and he had his own plan in mind. The 10 captains left the Elders Council in dismay, and the news that the glory team hunted 100,000 male insect crystals was spread out as expected, reaching the ears of every alliance member. Suddenly, all the alliance members were shocked. 100,000 male insect crystals, they dared not even dream of it. However, the glory team really exchanged 100,000 insect crystals for 100 million points. If the glory team really has the strength to hunt 100,000 insect crystals, then this alliance's first team is well deserved. The glory team becoming the first team in the alliance is like a big earthquake. It shocked the entire Ascendant Alliance. Moreover, after the earthquake, there were aftershocks one after another. Less than an hour after the captains of the top 10 in the alliance left the Elder Council, the Elemental Fury team, which was originally ranked 10th and now ranked 11th, suddenly saw a surge in points and entered the top 10 again. It squeezed the space-time hunting group in front to the 11th place. The top 10 teams in the alliance are not fuel-saving lamps. They have many resources in their hands, such as insect crystals, which are usually held in their hands and wait for the price to sell. You know, there are many things in the alliance that can be exchanged for points, and the points also fluctuate. Some teams rarely go out to perform tasks by themselves, but instead suppress small and medium-sized teams and buy insect crystals from them at low prices. When the alliance's policy changes and the price of insect crystals rises, they will sell them and earn huge points from the difference. However, in order to seize the qualification for the Awakener selection competition, the Elemental Fury did not care about it and sold all the resources in their hands and handed them directly to the alliance in exchange for points. Such a move, of course, the alliance is overjoyed. The other top 10 teams are also in danger, but they exchange their resources for points in order to keep their top 10 positions. This is a war without gunpowder. However, it is more cruel than ordinary wars. On the screen of the airport, the ranking of the top 10 teams keeps changing. There are even teams ranked outside the top 10, thinking that this is a great opportunity to intervene, sell resources, and squeeze out the top 10 teams. Chapter 1431, Go All In. However, in this war without the smoke of gunpowder, the most intense battle was not in the top 10 teams, but in the top 3. The emergence of the glory team squeezed the freelancers out of the 3 major teams of the alliance. Losing the position of the 3 major teams of the alliance not only lost the status and preferential treatment given by the alliance, but also greatly damaged the face of the freelancers. As the captain of the freelancers, Chris would naturally not allow such a thing to happen. Therefore, Chris immediately took out the resources accumulated by the team for many years and handed them over to the alliance to exchange for a large number of points. In a blink of an eye, it surpassed Iron and Blood and returned to the top 3 teams of the alliance. Chris, what do you mean by this? You don't join forces with me to deal with the glory team. Instead, you stab me in the back. After Hellas found out, he immediately went to Chris's door to question him. Haha, Captain Hellas, you worry too much. I just want to take back what belongs to me. Freelancers were third before, and they are still third now. It was the glory team that squeezed out Iron and Blood, wasn't it? You don't question the glory team, but come to question me instead? I don't understand. Chris was not a pushover either. With a cigar in his mouth, he pushed back Hellas' words with a nonchalant look. Hellas was so angry that his face turned red. He pointed at Chris' nose and wanted to punch him on his cynical smile. But in the end, Hellas still held back. This matter is not over. Let's rely on our own abilities to see who can keep the top 3 positions. Hellas went back angrily and immediately began to sell the precious resources accumulated by the team into points, hoping to regain the top 3 positions in the alliance. Airport. On the big screen, the rankings of the two teams, Iron and Blood and Freelancers, went up and down, chasing each other and refusing to give in, and it seemed that they were threatening the ranking of Halo. When Bizzo saw that the situation was not going well, he did not want to sell off the team resources, because it would be a huge loss. However, Aura had already lost its first place in the league, and Bizzo could not let his hard-earned Aura team fall out of the top 3, so he could only exchange points at a loss like other teams. Bizzo's heart was bleeding, but he could only grit his teeth and go ahead. The points of all the teams in the league were rapidly expanding. Only the first-ranked glory team had no change in points, still 100 million, but it left all the teams far behind, and remained in the first place. 10 hours later, almost all the resources of all the teams were exchanged for points, and everything was settled. Glory team was still the first. Aura team spent a huge price to keep the second place in the league. The third team in the league was the Freelancers. Iron and Blood tried their best, but in the end they were still no match for the Freelancers, and were squeezed out of the top 3 in the league. Arsehole. Arsehole. Hellas was like a mad lion in the team room, furious. Damn Chris. If he hadn't ripped me off when I was hunting the star-devouring queen, I will never lose to him in this competition. Hellas was extremely angry. In the Battle of Iranda Continent, the Iron and Blood team didn't gain any benefits at all, and suffered heavy losses. It had already shown some signs of decline before. This ranking battle completely exposed the weaknesses of Iron and Blood. But, there is still a chance. In the next Awakener selection, Iron and Blood have 2 places. One is me, and the other is the newcomer Guan Yu. As long as one of us can become an Awakener, we can take back everything we lost. Hellas smashed all the furniture in the team room, and his mood calmed down a little, and the flame of confidence burned again in his eyes. Go and call Guan Yu over. Hellas waved his hand, and ordered a vice captain. This time the team exchanged a large number of points. Except for the daily expenses of the team, all the remaining resources will be given to Guan Yu. Let him practice in the meditation room as much as possible, and improve his strength as much as possible. Hellas put all his chips on the selection of Awakeners. He has put all his eggs in one basket. The exclusive room of the glory team. Gar has set aside an area for Xia Xingchen as his mecha workshop. Usually, Xia Xingchen meditates in the mecha workshop, occasionally relaxes, makes some mecha parts and mecha painting, and rarely goes out. Even other members of the team find it difficult to see him. In the hall, Debbie, Huali, Mark, and Gar were drinking and chatting. Xia Xingchen is too much of a homebody. Debbie frowned slightly. I'm a pharmacist, and it's impossible for me to make potions in the room every day. It's too boring. Haha, you and Xingchen are carrying different things. He carries the fate of the entire empire and even the entire human race. Therefore, he needs to make use of all his time, constantly work hard to practice, and improve his strength as much as possible. In your opinion, he is a bit of a homebody, but he should be enjoying it. Gal said with a smile. Yeah, that's right. As long as he is happy. Huoli nodded. If I had half the effort of Xia Xingchen, I would definitely be a star now. What a pity. You have half the effort of him? Then you have to have half his talent. Mark touched his bald head. Before I entered the league, I thought I was talented enough. After entering the league, I found that my talent was just average. But compared with Xia Xingchen, I'm no different from a loser. Well, let's not talk about this. Anyway, our glory team is now the #1 team in the league. When I go out now, those mecha masters have to bow and nod to me. Hahaha, this feeling is really comfortable. Drink, drink. Aang stroked his grey goatee and laughed. He is old and knows that his potential has been exhausted, so he doesn't force himself to become stronger. However, people always like others to respect themselves. In the mecha workshop, Xia Xingchen sat cross-legged with two small mountains of metal in front of him. These two metal mountains, one is basalt ice crystal, and the other is white tiger Xingchen. Xia Xingchen had just exchanged it from the Alliance Mall with his points. Xia Xingchen needed too many of the two metals, so he emptied the Alliance's warehouse. Later, he found Kao Kong and successfully exchanged them. The basalt ice crystal was silver white and exuded a bone-chilling coldness. The white tiger Xingchen was golden yellow, shining with a dazzling golden glow, more dazzling than gold. Chapter 1432 Awakening. Finally, I have gathered all the materials needed for the last white tiger mecha. It was so difficult. I thought that I would never be able to gather all the 4 sacred beast mechas in this lifetime. Xia Xingchen laughed heartily. He felt very accomplished to be able to gather all the 4 sacred beast mechas. Xia Xingchen spent nearly 50 million points just to exchange for the white tiger Xingchen and the black tortoise crystal. He exchanged the remaining 50 million points for some legendary skills. Although Xia Xingchen has the Heaven and Man in Harmony skill. However, in order to comprehend the profound and difficult laws of the universe, many skills are needed to verify each other. In short, it is not a bad thing to read more skills and learn from each other's strengths. Of course, the main purpose of Xia Xingchen's exchange of these skills is to prepare them for his friends. Miyamoto Kenichi, Keeley and others are now S-level mecha masters, and they are not far from legends. Xia Xingchen wants to pave the way for them to achieve legends in advance. There were still some points left, and Gar suggested that Xia Xingchen should enter the meditation room again, but enter the elder level meditation room to meditate, quickly accumulate mental power, and improve the level of mental power. Gar's proposal was rejected by Xia Xingchen. The meditation room is indeed very useful, but Xia Xingchen has a bad feeling about it. He always has a strange feeling. After entering the meditation room, there are countless pairs of eyes looking at him in the dark, and their eyes are salivating, as if looking at some delicious food. Just thinking about this feeling makes Xia Xingchen feel scalp tingling. What's more, Xia Xingchen has mastered the harmony between man and nature technique, which can transform the power of faith into mental power. Unlike other legendary levels, there is a large demand for mental energy. Xia Xingchen slowly meditated in the room and transformed the power of faith. He felt that this way of practice was very good. Therefore, Xia Xingchen divided the remaining points equally among the members of the glory team. The members were very embarrassed, especially Gar, who did not accept the points given by Xia Xingchen. Brother Gar, our glory team is now the first in the league. The first in the league, of course, must have the strength of the first in the league. Isn't that right? Xia Xingchen looked at Gar with a smile. Gar thought about it, and it was indeed the truth. The glory team was originally a small team, and its strength was not ranked in the league. Although it has the title of the first in the league for the time being, in order to keep this ranking, it needs to have the strength to match it. And to improve strength, points are needed. In the end, Gar acquiesced and accepted what Xia Xingchen gave, but still insisted that he would definitely return it to Xia Xingchen when the points were more abundant. After the extra points were processed, Xia Xingchen locked himself in the mecha workshop, practicing while thinking about making the white tiger mecha. Xia Xingchen has already made the basalt mecha. However, the current basalt mecha is only 30% to 50% of the strength of the full state. According to Xia Xingchen's calculation and evaluation, it is actually only 30%. The star-devouring insect queen Xiaobei already has the strength to refine the basalt ice crystal. In other words, as long as Xia Xingchen returns to the Aranda continent, he can ask Xiaobei to refine the basalt ice crystals at any time, remelt the basalt mecha, and make it complete, and maximize its effectiveness. However, Xia Xingchen had to wait on the Generation spaceship to participate in the awakening selection, and he was busy for a while, so he had no chance to return to the Aranda continent to find Xiaobei. Whether to manufacture the white tiger mecha now is a problem. Xia Xingchen was in a dilemma. Xia Xingchen was a perfectionist. The mecha he made had better be perfect. Of course, there is no perfect thing in the universe. Xia Xingchen can only pursue perfection as much as possible within his own ability. Well, my current combat power is enough. It's okay not to manufacture the white tiger mecha for the time being. Even if it is manufactured, it can only be semi-finished products, and it will have to be remelted in the future, which is time consuming and laborious. Xia Xingchen thought again and again, and finally made up his mind not to manufacture the white tiger mecha for the time being. However, in order to be on the safe side, Xia Xingchen still sent part of the white tiger Zhengjin back to the star domain arc through the space-time beacon. Jia, I'll give you these materials first. You can do the rough processing first. If I need the white tiger mech, how long will it take you to make it? Xia Xingchen asked. If you give me the materials in advance, it will only take 30 minutes. Jia responded quickly. Okay. Xia Xingchen nodded. The Awakener selection competition is imminent, and many Alliance Masters have returned from the Infinite Star Abyss, waiting to watch this competition. This time, there are so many masters in the selection competition, and Xia Xingchen dare not be careless. In case of any danger, the white tiger mech can be teleported instantly, which is a killer. Generation spaceship, Upper Elders meeting. 14 white beams of light fell from above, shining on the 14 elders. Selection of Awakeners, once every 3 years. It is a major event of the Promoter Alliance. This time, a total of 24 candidates with great potential will participate. They will go through the test and select 3 Awakeners. And among the Awakeners, one will become a promoter. The elders were discussing the relevant matters of the Awakener selection competition. Suddenly, another beam of light appeared in the center of the dark dome and slowly fell to the floor. This beam of light was more dazzling than the others, like a bridge connecting heaven and earth. In the beam of light, a figure slowly emerged. This person was wearing a white robe with the vortex pattern of the Milky Way on it. He looked very old, with withered skin, but his eyes were as bright as stars. Ah, sir, you are awake? When the elders saw this person, they all knelt down and said respectfully, well, how was the alliance during my sleep? Is there anything important happening? The old man called the sir slowly sat down, and a throne rose from below, lifting him into the air, and looking down at the elders. Nothing special happened. Oh, by the way, a new round of awakening selection will begin soon. An elder crawled on the ground, shaking like a sieve. I know. I woke up just for this selection. The white-robed old man said slowly. The muscles at the corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and the skin on his face fell like powder. I don't have much time. I need to find a new ascender. Therefore, let me host this selection competition myself. Ah, you host it yourself? The elders were all stunned. The Awakener selection competition is hosted by the 14 elders of the Ascender Alliance. This is already a top event held every 3 years in the Alliance. And this time, it was actually hosted by this white-robed old man himself. Is it a blessing or a curse? Give me the list of contestants. I want to see if there are any geniuses worth paying attention to among these people. The white-robed old man whispered. Yes, sir. An elder immediately handed over the list. The list was not long, but the white-robed old man read it very slowly, one by one. Finally, he stretched out his finger, drew a circle on a name with his long nails, and a look of joy appeared on his face, as if he was very satisfied. This name was Xia Xingchen. Chapter 1433 called Ori, the Fallen One. Finally, the day of the Awakener selection competition came. Almost all the team members of the Ascender era spaceship rushed back and gathered in the central square. So many legends. Xia Xingchen, wearing a mecha combat suit, came to the platform above the square through a VIP channel surrounded by members of the Glory team. He looked down at the crowded square and couldn't help but marvel. Legendary mecha masters are rare in the Galactic Empire. However, there are hundreds of them in the Ascender Alliance. If these legendary mecha masters unite, they will be an extremely terrifying combat force that can instantly change the pattern of the Galactic Empire. Unfortunately, it is extremely difficult to unite, or even command legendary mecha masters. Most of the legendary mecha masters are unruly people. They don't care about power or money. In the eyes of legendary mecha masters, there is only one thing: power. Xingchen, you must do your best in the selection competition later. We are all watching in front of the screen and cheering for you. Debbie smiled on her beautiful face. Yeah, our glory is the top team in the alliance now. You can't bring shame to our team. Mark touched his bald head and joked. I'll try my best. Xia Xingchen nodded, but he was unsure. He is still a high-level Nebula legend, and the other contestants are at least planetary level, and there are even star-level contestants like Hellas. Although Xia Xingchen relies on the powerful performance of his mecha and the starry sky secret treasures such as the Source of Faith. However, Xia Xingchen is not arrogant. He knows very well that his strength may be equal to that of the planetary level, but when he encounters the star level, he can only flee in panic. It's mysterious, and I still don't know what the competition system is. However, since the alliance allows contestants of 3 levels, Nebula level, planetary level, and star level, to participate together, they will definitely come up with a decent competition system. Xia Xingchen stood on the high platform, overlooking the square, thinking silently in his heart. There are so many people. Gar also sighed. I haven't seen such a grand event for a long time. There were not so many people in the previous Awakener selection. This selection is different from the past. Hundreds of legendary mecha masters have gathered in the square. There are also spaceships and mechas flying back from the airport. They are all members of the alliance who have come back to watch the game. At this moment, many members are still on their way back. It's really different. Xia Xingchen found a seat and sat down, his face calm, closing his eyes to rest. Time passed by minute. As the cheerful music sounded from the broadcast of the spaceship, the hundreds of legendary mecha masters in the square fell silent. On the big screen, an old figure in a white robe appeared. Who is it? Isn't it one of the 14 elders? I've never seen it before. The legendary mecha masters were whispering, and they had never seen this old man. However, Bisso, Hellas, and Chris were stunned when they saw the old man, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. A few seconds later, Bisso was the first to kneel down. Hellas and Chris followed suit and knelt down. It's the Fallen One. Sir, you've awakened. Bisso buried his head in the ground, his body trembling slightly. At this time, the alliance members in the square realized that behind this old man, the 14 elders of the alliance were also kneeling down in unison, just like Bisso and the other two, with great respect. The Fallen One? Could it be the Fallen One called Dory, one of the 3 founders of the Ascendant Alliance? Oh my god. I actually saw the Fallen One. A living legend. When the alliance members heard the name of the Fallen One, they were all shocked and immediately knelt down in unison. On the high platform, Xia Xingchen looked at the old man in white robes on the big screen, then turned around and saw that Gar and others all had shocked expressions and asked curiously, Fallen? Who is that? Why do you all have such weird expressions when you see this old man? Xingchen, you have joined the alliance for too short a time, and you don't know many secrets of the alliance yet. Gar was excited. The highest authority of the Ascendant Alliance is not the Council of Elders. It's the Ascendants. The life level of the Ascendants is already higher than that of humans, and is not much different from the legendary celestial beings. There are 7 known Ascendants in the Alliance. The Fallen called Dory is one of them. Moreover, the Fallen is one of the founders of the Ascendant Alliance. He actually woke up and personally presided over this Awakener selection competition. No wonder the standards are higher than usual. Founder of the Alliance? Xia Xingchen frowned slightly. As far as I know, the Ascendant Alliance has existed for a very long time, with at least 1,000 years of history. The Fallen is the founder. Is he 1,000 years old? Yes. He was an ancient man from 1,000 years ago. Gar nodded, agreeing with Xia Xingchen's point of view. Can humans live that long? Impossible. Xia Xingchen shook his head repeatedly. Even if the legendary level breaks the gene lock, the number of times a human cell can divide is limited. Living to 200 or 300 years old is already the limit. The technology of a 1,000-year-old celestial being may not be able to do it. The Fallen One has been sleeping in the cryostat and rarely wakes up. This time, I don't know what the reason is. Gar smiled and said, in the cryostat, let alone 1,000 years, even if it is 3,000 years or 5,000 years, with our current technology, it can continue to sleep. Xia Xingchen certainly understood what Gar said. After hundreds of years of development, human cryostat technology has long been extremely mature. Before the establishment of the Galactic Empire, the ancestors of the Qin royal family had not discovered the remains of the celestial being on the coffin star and developed the jump technology. When humans traveled to the stars, the crew could only sleep in the cryostat. In order to reach a distant planet, they even had to sleep for hundreds of years. In that era, there were also many rich people who were willing to pay huge maintenance fees to let themselves sleep for hundreds of years and then wake up to see what the future would look like. The fallen Kaldori is really a big shot. Xia Xingchen looked at the old man on the big screen. On his haggard face, his eyes were kind as stars, full of wisdom. Elder Cao Kong, you come and announce the rules of this selection. The fallen turned around and said to an elder who was kneeling on the ground. Yes. Elder Cao Kong immediately stood up, walked to the screen, and began to announce the relevant matters of the selection to everyone. This time, the selection of awakened people will select 3 people from the 24 contestants to become awakened people. In the central square, both the contestants and the spectators listened quietly and carefully. Chapter 1430 for Lost World. Cao Kong continued, the 24 of you will be teleported to a special dimension. You all heard it clearly, that dimension is not even in the universe we are in now, it is another dimensional space. This space is called the Lost World. In this dimensional world, you can fight as much as you want, the only goal is to survive. Within 2 months, eliminate the other contestants, and the last 3 remaining contestants are the awakened ones. 24 contestants, fighting as much as you want in another dimension. In the end, 3 people survive? Cruel. This competition system is too cruel. It's more than cruel, it's simply primitive and barbaric. Moreover, it's extremely unfair. Among the 24 people, there is a peerless powerhouse like Hellas. Can't he easily kill the other 23 people in seconds? In the square, the alliance members were talking to each other. Haha, it's such a simple and crude competition system. On the other side of the platform, Hellas looked at Xia Xingchen from afar, his eyes flashing with ferocity, and sneered. Xia Xingchen, the first thing I will do when entering the Lost World is to kill you. You will never escape. There is one more thing I just forgot to say. Please note that the space law in this broken dimensional world is not the same as the current universe. The biggest difference is that the spiritual energy in the air is very thin. Therefore, the spiritual power of a stellar level mecha master will be suppressed to the planetary level. Cao Kong added with a smile. A stellar level strongman was suppressed to the planetary level. Hearing this, the members below were stunned. Hellas also had a dumbfounded expression, frowning. Lost World, there is such a weird space law, it can actually suppress realm. However, even if it is planetary level, it is enough to kill Xia Xingchen. After all, he is just a nebula level brat. Great. Garrel looked happy and turned to look at Xia Xingchen. I said that the alliance can't make an unfair competition system. Nebula level, planetary level, and star level mecha masters compete together, and the final result must be that the star level wins. It turns out that this dimensional world will suppress realm. Xingchen, this is good news. Yeah. Xia Xingchen nodded and relaxed a little. If Hellas is a star level, the realm alone can crush Xia Xingchen. However, if Hellas's strength is suppressed to the planetary level, then Xia Xingchen still has some chances. Xia Xingchen is now at the peak of the nebula level, but his combat power can already compete with the planetary level mecha master. The competition rules have been explained clearly, and the time is up. Please ask the 24 contestants to enter the space gate. Teleport to the Lost World. The competition officially begins. Cao Kong announced. Swish. Above the square, an oval metal gate suddenly appeared, flashing with dazzling silver light. It was 20 meters high and 10 meters wide, emitting strong space fluctuations. A dark space storm was raging inside the gate. This is. Xia Xingchen's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip. The shape of this space gate was somewhat similar to the Stargate of the mechanical race. However, the Stargate of the mechanical race is several thousand meters high, and the space in front of them is much smaller, and only mechas can pass through. Wow. The legendary mecha masters below had almost never seen a space gate, and they all looked up in amazement. Brothers, I'm off. Xia Xingchen turned around and hugged Gar and the others one by one, then drove the Qinglang mecha towards the space gate. The 24 contestants also drove their own mechas and flew towards the space gate. As soon as the Kinglang mecha arrived near the space gate, it was sucked in by a huge force and disappeared in the dark space gate in an instant. In the blink of an eye, all 24 mechas disappeared in the air. On the top of the Generation spaceship, the fallen one called Dore smiled on his wrinkled face and whispered, "Younger generations, the opportunity has been handed over to you. You must work hard." 24 split screens appeared on the big screen in the central square, which was still dark for the time being. After the contestants entered the Lost World, their images could be tracked on the screen. "Xingchen, you must work hard." Ga clenched his fists tightly. Suddenly, the screen flashed with light, and several screens had lit up. "It's Xia Xingchen. He has arrived." Debbie pointed at the screen and shouted in surprise. "Yes, in another dimension world." Huoli was also excited. The members of the Glory team all looked expectant. Lost World. Xia Xingchen drove the Kinglang mecha and hovered over an abandoned city. It was the first time for Xia Xingchen to experience interdimensional teleportation. He felt a little uncomfortable and dizzy. Is this world the Lost World? Xia Xingchen came back to his senses and looked up at the dark sky. The sky was full of heavy radiation clouds, as if a nuclear war had occurred. The cities on the ground were also full of broken walls and ruins, and abandoned cars were piled up on the road, corroded by acid rain. The radiation exceeded the standard, the oxygen content was insufficient, and no signs of life were found within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Xia Xingchen unfolded the panoramic map to collect information about the Lost World, and the space-time beacon can't contact the outside world. Xia Xingchen took out the space-time beacon, and the flashing blue light on it went out, and he couldn't contact the star domain arc. "I can't use the space-time beacon to contact the outside world. The white tiger mecha can't be teleported either. In other words, I can only fight with the azure dragon, vermilion bird, and black tortoise mechas." Xia Xingchen carefully evaluated his own combat power. He had a vague feeling in his heart that the dimension of the Lost World was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. A mecha is flying towards me. Suddenly, a light spot broke into the panoramic view, and Xia Xingchen noticed it immediately. No, it's not one mecha, but 4 mechas. Flying towards me from 4 directions. Xia Xingchen frowned. It's indeed a contestant from the Glory team. Hahaha, I didn't expect to find it so easily. This guy seems to be the rumored Xia Xingchen. The 4 of us shouldn't fight. Let's get rid of him first. Okay. That's exactly what I meant. The 4 mechas belong to different teams, and the Mecha Masters' combat uniforms are also different. They reached a consensus in the public channel and prepared to kill Xia Xingchen. The rapid rise of the Glory team naturally aroused the jealousy of many people, especially the top 10 teams in the alliance. In order to grab the top 10 rankings, they all exchanged resources for points at a loss, which seriously damaged their vitality. They were dissatisfied with the Glory team. The most important thing is that they all know that Xia Xingchen is the key figure in the rapid rise of the Glory team. They also know Xia Xingchen's special status in the Galactic Empire. Therefore, they all regard Xia Xingchen as a thorn in their rise and a thorn in their flesh. Let's attack together. This is a rare opportunity. In addition to these 4 Mecha Masters, nearby Mecha Masters also shared this information and immediately rushed over to join the team hunting Xia Xingchen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1435 Space Storm. At one time, 4 legends drove mechas and flew towards Xia Xingchen above the abandoned city at a very fast speed, like thunder. In the perception of the panoramic map, in addition to these 4 mechas, there are 5 mechas flying towards this side, obviously coming for him. Xia Xingchen was shocked. There are 9 legends in total, almost half of the contestants. After all, they are all legends, but they come together to deal with me. They are really rude. Xia Xingchen shook his head and smiled bitterly. He still had some chances of winning against a planetary Mecha Master. Against 9 at the same time, he would definitely die. I can only run. Xia Xingchen immediately paused, and the Azure Dragon Mecha condensed the Sky Dragon wings behind it, and the wings flapped slightly. Whoosh! Under the dark sky, the Azure Dragon Mecha left a stream of green light, and disappeared into the sky. This Xia Xingchen is so cunning. He ran away when he saw that things were not going well. His mecha is so fast. It seems that he can jump directly. Of course. The Galactic Empire and the Northern Empire have both listed Xia Xingchen as the #1 dangerous person. No one can catch him even with a huge reward. It can be seen that Xia Xingchen is extremely good at escaping. Forget it. Since he escaped, let's let him go for now. In the sky, 9 mechas were suspended in the air, and the mecha masters were discussing in the public channel. Xia Xingchen escaped. What about us? A planetary mecha master suddenly said. We. The 9 mecha masters all looked embarrassed. In the Lost World, they were all hostile. Just now, because of Xia Xingchen, the common enemy, they formed a fragile alliance. However, Xia Xingchen escaped in an instant. Without the common enemy, their alliance immediately cracked. Fight? If 9 people fight in a melee, I'm afraid no one will end up well. Don't fight? Which mecha master dares? To leave first means exposing his back to the enemy. What if the other 8 people join forces to get rid of me? For a moment, the 9 mecha masters were all driving mechas, frozen in place, unable to advance or retreat. I have a suggestion. The 9 of us cannot attack each other for an hour, said a slightly older mecha master. Well, good idea. The other mecha masters also agreed. They all looked at each other and flew in all directions. In an hour, with the performance of a legendary mecha, you can fly thousands of kilometers away. Whoosh! The King Lang mecha used a jump and flew to a large canyon tens of thousands of kilometers away, and Xia Xingchen stopped. Good guy. They actually besieged me together. Even if I'm a star level, I can't bear it. The selection of awakened people, strength is one aspect, and on the other hand, it tests comprehensive abilities such as strategy and tactics. Xia Xingchen soon realized that this test was more cruel than he had imagined. Only the top 3 of the 24 people can become awakened. The elimination rate is too high. In addition to strong combat effectiveness, it also tests hiding, speed, timing of attack, and most importantly, IQ. The Lost World is so large that, if you hide well, you only need to wait for others to fight, and if you are lucky, you can enter the top 3. But, is it really that easy? Xia Xingchen suddenly heard the crackling sound of thunder in the air. He immediately drove the King Lang mecha to the sky and saw a black space storm raging not far away, turning everything into dust, and the whole person was stunned. There is no starry sky outside this space. There are only endless space storms. The moment you enter the space storm, even the Zuanwu mecha will be torn into pieces. And the space storm is constantly moving, making our activity space smaller. After Xia Xingchen understood, he took a breath of cold air. The space storm will shrink the activity space, so it is useless to keep running and hiding. When the safe area is reduced to the end, the 24 contestants will definitely meet. At that time, I'm afraid that they will encounter more brutal fighting. This place will be swallowed by the space storm soon. There is no way. I can only move and enter the central area to hide. Xia Xingchen sighed and piloted the King Lang mecha again, flying towards the center of the safe area. The Ascended Generation spaceship, the upper area, the Elders Council. 15 beams of light fell, illuminating the figures of 14 elders and the fallen one called Dory. Dory closed his eyes and asked in a low voice, "What's the situation? How many people have been defeated?" "My lord, the contestants are very careful, and no one has failed yet," Xiao Kang said cautiously. "It's been so long, and no one has failed yet?" Dory suddenly opened his eyes. "What about the space storm? The time is almost up. It's going to start shrinking." "My lord, the space storm is raging, and the safe area will soon become smaller. When that time comes, they will have to fight. The game will be interesting," Xiao Kang said. "I can't wait any longer. Go help them," Dory ordered. "Ah, my lord, so many members are watching on the big screen of the Alliance? Do we really have to do it?" Another elder was horrified. "Just find a reason to cut off the signal. Just say that the space storm affected the signal." Dory waved his hand impatiently. Yes, sir. We'll do it right away. Kyo Kang said. Lost World. Xia Xingchen was hiding in a valley. He had put away the Azure Dragon mech and replaced it with the Black Tortoise mech. The appearance of the Azure Dragon mech was too familiar to others. Once discovered, they would immediately come to besiege, and Xia Xingchen couldn't handle it. The Black Tortoise mech was just manufactured not long ago, and other mecha masters should not know it yet. The most important thing is that the Black Tortoise mech has the strongest defense. It can withstand sudden attacks. Although Xia Xingchen's panorama is strong, his mental power is not infinite, and he can't keep the panorama open all the time. We are getting closer and closer to the center of the safe area. Others must have discovered the situation of the space storm, and will move here. There may be a battle at any time. Xia Xingchen thought to himself. Boom. Suddenly a beam of laser light blasted upward from the ground and hit the Xuanwu mecha. The Xuanwu mecha was burning all over, and fell from the sky. Hit it. The soil on the ground turned over, and a sky blue mecha soared into the sky, carrying a large caliber laser sniper rifle on its back. In the cockpit, a middle-aged planetary level mecha master had ecstasy on his face. Boom. The Xuanwu mecha fell to the ground, raising a large cloud of dust. The sky blue mecha flew into the air, without any mercy. The missile launch port on the chest of the mecha opened, releasing hundreds of neutron missiles, bombarding the direction of the Xuanwu mecha. The power of neutron missiles is no less than that of nuclear bombs. The lethality is even greater. This middle-aged mecha master has extremely rich combat experience. Once he makes a move, he will be merciless, and want to blow Xia Xingchen and his mecha into pieces. Chapter 1436 The Dignity of the Strong. Boom boom boom. Hundreds of neutron missiles exploded at the same time, and a series of deafening roars sounded. Hundreds of dazzling balls of light surged in the air. The earth sank with the Xuanwu mecha as the center, and a huge deep pit with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters appeared, as if it was hit by a meteorite. Is he dead? The smoke blocked his vision. The middle-aged mecha master used the life detector to scan the bombing site to determine whether Xia Xingchen was dead. No life heat reaction. The mecha master should have been killed. Too weak. There was no chance to fight back. The middle-aged mecha master couldn't help laughing. Bang. However, at this moment, the earth suddenly trembled, and a heavy footsteps came into his ears. He was startled, and turned his head to look. He saw a huge mecha figure slowly walking out of the smoke. You actually sneak attacked me. You have good hiding ability, but unfortunately your attack power is a little bit weak. The silver-white basalt mecha walked out of the deep pit unscathed, stretched out his hand to knock off the mud and dust on the mecha. In the cockpit, Xia Xingchen had a faint smile on his face, not panicking at all. The temperature is so low. Is it an ice-type mutant who can regulate body temperature and avoid the life detector? But what's more terrifying is the defense of this mecha. It was my strongest attack just now, but it was unscathed. The middle-aged mecha master was startled, and the mecha flew backwards instantly, pulling away from Xia Xingchen, his eyes full of vigilance. Although Xia Xingchen looked normal, he was scared in his heart. To be honest, the sneak attack just now still scared him. If Xia Xingchen hadn't been so vigilant, and had changed into the basalt mecha with the strongest defense in advance, then even the Qinglang mecha would not be able to withstand the sneak attack of the mecha master just now. Tell me your name. I, Snake, will not kill nameless people under my wild thunder. The blue mech waved his hand, and a long-handled giant axe covered with thunder condensed out. The middle-aged man stared at Xia Xingchen, not daring to neglect him at all. Oh, it turns out that you are the captain of the Razor team ranked 7th in the alliance, Snake. Xia Xingchen smiled slightly. He had heard of Snake's name. He was a very powerful planetary level strongman. I'm Xia Xingchen of the Glory team. Since you are a thunder type psychic, then I will use the Azure Dragon to deal with you. Swish. In an instant, Xia Xingchen put the Black Tortoise mech back into space and replaced it with the Azure Dragon mech. In his hand, a double helix spear apt with thunder condensed out. The ice type mech was replaced by the electric type mech. What exactly is your superpower? A dual superpower. Ice and thunder dual cultivation? No wonder you are hailed as a genius. Snake was extremely shocked. Even among the legendary level, dual superpowers are extremely rare. But, you actually used a lightning mecha to fight me. It's an insult to me. You're good at everything, but you're not good at anything. Let me teach you what a real lightning ability is. Snake was furious and roared wildly. Suddenly, millions of thunders fell around him, covering his whole body. Thunder field. In the field, the attackers were struck by thunder. Boom boom boom. Snake controlled the mecha, waving the thunder axe in his hand, and one after another thunder dragons roared out and bombarded the King Lang mecha. Good guy. Is a legendary lightning user so terrifying? Xia Xingchen was also shocked. Nina was also a lightning user, but compared with Snake, the lightning energy released by Nina was like a firefly compared to a star. It was really too weak. But my Azure Dragon mecha is the nemesis of thunder type mutants. Xia Xingchen smiled slightly and shouted, Heart of Thunder. The Azure Dragon mecha did not dodge or evade, and even opened the protective plate on its chest, revealing its core. A dazzling vortex of thunder was seen coiling around the chest of the Azure Dragon mecha. This was the Heart of Thunder. Roar. The Thunder Dragon released by Snake bombarded the Heart of Thunder. The Heart of Thunder was like a black hole, swallowing up one Thunder Dragon after another. Not only the Thunder Dragons, but also the angry thunder that kept falling in Snake's thunder field was pulled by a powerful force and sucked into the Heart of Thunder. In the blink of an eye, Snake's mental power was consumed by more than half. The Heart of Thunder was like an insatiable monster, swallowing up his mental power in big mouthfuls. The light of the Heart of Thunder became brighter and more dazzling. Not good. Snake was shocked and quickly put away the domain. He shouted in surprise, Heart of Thunder. Your mecha is equipped with the Heart of Thunder. As a thunder type mutant, Snake had naturally heard the legend about the Heart of Thunder. The Heart of Thunder can devour lightning and possesses eternal power that will never run out. It is the treasure of the mermaids. Unfortunately, the civilization of the mermaids has been destroyed. The Heart of Thunder can only exist in legends like the civilization of the mermaids. Snake never thought that he would encounter a mecha equipped with the Heart of Thunder. Heart of Thunder. It's a waste to give such a treasure to this kid. It really makes me sad. Snake's face was full of greed, and his eyes stared at Xia Xingchen greedily. But, he has the Heart of Thunder. He is my nemesis. I can't defeat him. What should I do? Snake was impatient. Although Xia Xingchen had not yet officially launched an attack, he already knew that he would definitely lose. The mecha equipped with the Heart of Thunder is the nemesis of all thunder type superpowers. Snake is no exception. Thank you for your energy. Xia Xingchen saw that the Heart of Thunder had almost devoured it, so he closed the chest armor of the mecha, waved his hand, and 4 narrow drills flashing with thunder appeared above his head, ready to give Snake a fatal blow. I surrender. Snake raised his hands to surrender directly, and even put away the thunder axe in the mecha's hand, looking like he was ready to be slaughtered by Xia Xingchen. Surrendered? Xia Xingchen frowned. You are a planetary level powerhouse after all, and the captain of a team ranked in the top 10 of the alliance. Surrender without a fight. Do you have any dignity as a powerhouse? You must know that our every move is seen by the members of the entire Ascendant Alliance. Aren't you embarrassed? Snake certainly knew that his every move was being broadcast live. His face was flushed, but compared with the Heart of Thunder, what was face? Strong? What is a strong? Fighting a battle knowing that you will lose? To be severely humiliated by you? Snake argued. You attacked me first. Now that the situation looks bad, you raise your hands in surrender. Do you really think I will be soft-hearted and let you go? Xia Xingchen looked at Snake with disgust. Xia Xingchen has always been decisive in killing people. This is the Lost World, and everyone is hostile to each other. Naturally, it is impossible for him to be bypassed just because Snake surrendered lightly. Chapter 1437, Winning Over. The Ascender Generation Spaceship. Central Square. Hundreds of legendary mecha masters looked up at the screen. Snake, the captain of the Razor team, was a planetary level warrior. He raised his hands and surrendered before fighting Xia Xingchen, who was a nebula level warrior. This was shocking. Snake is too cowardly. We won't know whether he can win until we fight. He surrendered directly. He is too spineless. What's wrong with raising his hands and surrendering? He really thought that Xia Xingchen was a good man. He is a famous big devil in the starry sky. He killed people like flies and slaughtered planets like a war maniac. The Mecha Masters were all discussing and looked down on Snake's actions. Humph, what do you know? Captain Snake is as cunning as his name. A member of the Razor team snorted in the crowd and didn't care. That's right, just wait for the result. This is the captain's tactic. If that kid named Xia Xingchen believes it, he will suffer. Another team member also had a treacherous smile on his face. Razor team has a bad reputation in the alliance. It is because of Snake, who has a sinister and cunning style of doing things. He even said that the military is cunning. On the screen, Xia Xingchen was silent, staring at Snake, and had not made a decision yet. Xingchen. Don't trust him. This Snake is famous for being as cunning as a snake. Don't trust him. The members of the Glory team looked at the screen, all sweating for Xia Xingchen, and worried about him. Hiss. At this moment, the screen suddenly tore and twisted, and the characters on it were also stretched and deformed, and finally turned into countless snowflakes, and made a hissing noise. What's going on? The signal is broken? Why is the picture gone? It's about to be exciting. What's going on? The members of the alliance were all surprised and shouted loudly. Hiss. The picture was restored, but it was not the picture of the lost world, but the face of Elder Kao Kang. I'm sorry, due to the space storm, the signal transmission is affected and the picture cannot be restored for the time being. Elder Kao Kang bowed deeply and apologized. Everyone can pay attention to the spacecraft broadcast. If the signal transmission returns to normal, we will notify you as soon as possible. Now, everyone can go back and rest for a while. Space storm. What kind of excuse is that? It's really a bummer. Let's go. Go back to sleep. The members of the alliance left the square one by one, muttering and complaining. In the lost world, the contestants didn't know that the live broadcast signal had been cut off, and a nightmare was quietly approaching. Since I surrender, there must be a reason for you to let me go. Snake looked at Xia Xingchen and said, reason? Tell me. Xia Xingchen raised his eyebrows and a cold smile appeared on his face. My companion is on the way. Although you are very strong and have the heart of thunder to restrain me, even if I resist with all my strength, you can't kill me in a short time. When my companion arrives, it is impossible for the two of us to be opponents. Snake shrugged his shoulders. My reason is that simple. Your companion? Xia Xingchen frowned. You actually formed an alliance with others. Won't your companion stab you in the back? That, you don't have to worry about. I trust Nia's character. Snake smiled easily. Nia. The captain of the 9th ranked star traveler in the alliance? Xia Xingchen trembled. Gal once said that among the top 10 team captains, Nia is the most mysterious one. He has never shown his strength in front of the public, and no one even knows what his superpowers are. Yes, that Nia. Snake nodded. Fighting 2 planetary level strongmen at the same time, and there is also a mysterious Nia. Xia Xingchen did not have much confidence. Forget it. He is a strong human after all. We will need strong men like Snake in the future war with the mechanical race. It would be a pity to kill him. Besides, he has teammates. Xia Xingchen thought about it and decided to let Snake go for the time being. In the Awakener selection, the most important thing is survival. Xia Xingchen will not benefit from taking the risk of killing Snake. Swish. Xia Xingchen put away his weapon, and the blue dragon wings behind the King Lang mecha spread out, ready to leave. Wait a minute. Snake drove the mecha to block Xia Xingchen. What? I have let you go? What else do you want to do? Xia Xingchen frowned slightly, and looked at Snake with a vigilant face. Xia Xingchen, don't worry. Your people are so good, that they let me go. So, I decided to tell you a piece of information. Snake squinted his eyes and smiled. What information? Xia Xingchen said coldly. Have you ever seriously thought about the format of the Awakener trials? The 24 of us are not completely hostile to each other. There are 3 winners in the end. In other words, the format assumes that the 3 of us form a team. As long as our team of 3 wins, then the 3 of us will all be Awakeners. Snake said. 3 people in a team. Xia Xingchen's eyes lit up. Snake's information was very useful. In fact, Xia Xingchen also thought about forming a team of 3. However, he was used to being alone, and was more worried about being stabbed in the back by his teammates than forming a team. But Snake and the others were different. He and the other contestants were all members of the alliance. They may have carried out missions together, experienced life and death, and knew each other well, so there was a possibility of forming a team. In other words, the enemies Xia Xingchen would face in the future might not be a single person, but one or two teammates. Nia and I are now a team of 2. The team is missing a strong person like you. Come on, join our team. The 3 of us will definitely be invincible, defeat other teams, and become the winner. Snake took the opportunity to win over Xia Xingchen. You want to win me over? Let me join your team? Xia Xingchen looked at Snake in surprise. Yes. Although I'm not your opponent, you have seen that my fighting ability is not weak. And Nia, although his fighting ability is also very strong, and his ability is very special. Xia Xingchen, join our team. Let's become awakened together. Snake's words were very inflammatory. Sorry, I'm not interested. Xia Xingchen shook his head and flatly rejected Snake's invitation. It is true that Snake is not a weak person, and the mysterious Nia may be even more powerful. But apart from the glory team, Xia Xingchen does not trust anyone. Moreover, Xia Xingchen has also heard some rumors about Snake, knowing that he is very cunning, and not a teammate who can be trusted. No matter what, we will meet again, if we are destined to. Xia Xingchen did not intend to stay. The next second, the Qinglang Mecha suddenly disappeared, leaving a blurry after image on the spot. Chapter 1438 Shocking Change. He actually left directly? Snake stared at the after image left by Xia Xingchen, and couldn't help shaking his head and smiling bitterly. Although Xia Xingchen is young, he is mature beyond his years. He is not an easy character to deal with. Alas, the key is that Nia's speed is too slow. Snake put away his weapons in a huff and prepared to drive the mecha away. A fierce battle had just broken out here, and someone might come over. It was no longer safe, and Snake was also preparing to make a strategic shift. However, at this moment, the ground suddenly trembled, and cracks appeared one after another with Snake as a center. The dust and stones on the ground suddenly lost weight and flew upwards. Is there a high energy reaction under my feet? Snake's face changed immediately. Boom. A beam of light shot up into the sky, and the entire hill turned into dust in the light. Xia Xingchen did not fly too far. He noticed that a high energy reaction had occurred at the place where the battle had just taken place. The mecha suddenly stopped in the air, with a look of surprise on his face. He looked behind him, and saw the beam of light that shot up into the sky. What's going on? Xia Xingchen's body trembled, looking at the beam of light from a distance. His face changed slightly. The place where this beam of light appeared is indeed the place where I just fought with Snake. Have other mecha masters rushed over to fight with Snake? Forget it. No matter who attacked Snake, it has nothing to do with me. It's not advisable to stay here for long. Xia Xingchen shook his head. Although he was curious, he was still not ready to go back and wade into this muddy water. Xia Xingchen turned around and prepared to continue flying to the safe area, looking for a safe place surrounded by the space storm. Beep beep. The information receiver of the mecha suddenly received a signal, and the screen flashed green. It was a message for help. Someone is asking for help? Xia Xingchen was slightly startled, and a strange look appeared on his face. The lost world is now a killing field. 24 mecha masters, even if they are a team of 3, are actually enemies. In such a killing field, whether they are attacked by others or besieged by others, they can only accept their fate. Ask for help? Xia Xingchen wanted to laugh, unless he sent a distress signal to his own team. Even if other people received the distress message, they would not go to rescue. Sending a distress signal on the public channel. Either this contestant is a fool, or he is desperate. He has no other choice but to ask for help. Xia Xingchen was curious and clicked on the distress message. This is a video. The video shows a handsome man with long silver hair. His handsome face was distorted by fear, and his grey eyes were full of bloodshot. My name is Nia. Whoever received the message, please support me immediately. I was attacked by an unknown enemy. I repeat, it's not the 24 contestants, but the lives living in the lost world. Request support. Support. Nia's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he was obviously trying his best to support himself. The camera turned, and the last few frames of the video were the enemy who attacked him. It was a blue mecha covered with thunder and light. The picture was interrupted here. Isn't this mecha Snake's razor mecha? Xia Xingchen rewound the video and slowed it down frame by frame to confirm that the enemy attacking Nia was indeed Snake's razor mecha. This is strange. Snake kept saying that Nia was his teammate, so why did he attack Nia? Moreover, since it was obviously Snake who attacked Nia, why did Nia say that the enemy attacking him was the indigenous life of the Lost World? Xia Xingchen could only think of two possibilities. One is that Snake and Nia were acting in a double act, sending out a distress signal to attract other contestants to come over and kill them together. Another possibility is that something incomprehensible happened to Nia. If it was the former possibility, then it can only be said that the two people's ideas were naive and their acting skills were poor. Even if the other contestants received the distress signal, they would not even open it. Boring. Xia Xingchen snorted coldly and prepared to drive the Qinglang mecha away, ignoring any distress signal. However, Nia's horrified expression appeared in Xia Xingchen's mind again. Extreme panic, extreme despair. Xia Xingchen has the omniscience domain and can understand other people's feelings from their expressions. Forget it. The space storm will not arrive for some time. I still have time. Moreover, I have mastered the way of concealment. With the detection ability of the panoramic map, I will be careful to sneak back. No one should find me. Xia Xingchen changed his mind for some reason. The figure of the Azure Dragon mecha in the air gradually faded until it was completely transparent. Only when the wings of the Sky Dragon flapped, it sprinkled a faint starlight that was extremely difficult to detect, spreading all the way to the direction of the sky highlight column. In the center of the light column, most of the matter was evaporated by high energy, and a bottomless hole appeared on the ground. Above the big hole, a silver gray mech was fighting with the razor mech covered with thunder. In the silver gray mecha, two crescent-shaped battle patterns flickered on Nia's face, raising his mental power to the peak. The silver mecha held a laser sword in one hand and a shield in the other, desperately resisting the bombardment of the thunder axe. On the other side, the cockpit of the razor mecha was covered with a gray insect carpet. Snake looked extremely terrifying, with no pupils in his eyes, only whites, and more than a dozen gray tentacles swaying on his forehead. There were also many irregular ridges in his mecha combat suit, and tentacles broke out from time to time. Obviously, Snake was parasitized by some terrifying creature, and became what he is now, completely losing his self-awareness. Snake, who lost his self-awareness, not only did not weaken his combat power, but became even stronger. Those parasites obviously did not worry that overdrawing their mental power would cause irreversible damage to Snake's body and brain. They continued to overdraw their mental power, manipulated the mecha, and released one powerful attack after another. Wake up. Snake. Wake up. I'm Nia. Your friend Nia. Nia kept yelling during the battle, but it was in vain. He couldn't wake up Snake at all. Boom boom boom. The battle axes kept falling, and the thunder dragons bombarded over. The shield in the hands of Nia's mecha finally couldn't hold on. It was covered with spider web-like fine lines, and finally with a bang, it was completely shattered. Another thunder dragon roared over, and the outer armor of Nia's silver gray mecha was completely shattered. The body lost all defenses, and was exposed to the enemy's attack. Swish. A tentacle as thick as a bucket suddenly pierced out from the razor mecha, pierced Nia's cockpit, and entangled his body tightly. The tentacle was very flexible, and drilled into Nia's mouth. Chapter 1439, Return. A man can be killed, but not humiliated. Nia's body was tightly entangled by the tentacles, unable to move. He could only watch the tentacles drill into his mouth, with a flash of determination in his eyes. Rather than being parasitized by these disgusting tentacles and becoming a puppet at their mercy, it is better to self-destruct and perish together with them. Nia has the dignity of being a strong man and would rather die than live in a half-human and half-ghost state. Bang. With this thought, Nia detonated the mental power planet in his brain. This planet instantly turned into pure mental power, compressed into a singularity, and was about to explode. Nia's pupils, nostrils, and mouth even began to emit strong light, and he was about to self-destruct. The legendary Mecha Master detonated the mental power planet, and the power of the self-detonation was comparable to that of a nuclear bomb. Swish. A section of tentacle protruded from behind Nia, pierced from the back of his head, and directly touched the brainstem. HMM. Nia felt a sharp pain in the back of his head and was shocked to find that his mental power seemed to be completely drained and he couldn't mobilize it at all. Oh no. This parasitic life instantly absorbed all my mental power. I can't even self-destruct. Endless despair enveloped Nia. His face was completely gloomy, the world was spinning, and it seemed that his soul had sunk into the abyss. Galaxy. No matter who it is. Who can come to save me? Even if it means killing me. Nia had no expression on his face. He had completely lost control of his facial muscles, and only 2 lines of tears slid down his handsome face. At this moment, sure, a rotating spiral light flew from the sky and blasted the tentacles into 2 pieces. A cyan dragon-shaped mecha slowly emerged from mid-air. It was Xia Xingchen who had returned. Xia Xingchen's expression was grim, his brows were furrowed, and he looked in the direction of the razor mech, muttering to himself. There are 2 mental fluctuations in the cockpit. One is Snake, which is very weak. The other is an unknown creature. The mental fluctuations are very terrifying, not inferior to mine. Cough cough cough. The tentacles broke, and Nia's body loosened, falling from mid-air. He knelt and coughed continuously, vomiting black smelly liquid from his mouth, including many broken tentacle fragments. Xia Xingchen's attack just now was not as simple as breaking the tentacles. The huge destructive energy spread along the tentacles, completely destroying its internal structure, cutting off its vitality, but did not hurt Nia at all. Such precise power control is terrifying. Food. In the razor mech, Snake suddenly raised his head, with scarlet light flashing in his eyes, and his mental power suddenly burst out. The mech held the thunder axe, and at an astonishing speed, it chopped down on the head of the Kinglan mech. I never hold back when dealing with aliens, especially disgusting things like you. A cold light flashed in Xia Xingchen's eyes, and his fingers slightly raised. His mental power was concentrated on the black bracelet on his wrist. 4 narrow spiral drills gathered above the Azure Dragon mech, slowly rotating and making a low humming sound. Spiral drills. Go. Xia Xingchen pointed at the razor mech. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 4 sharp sounds of breaking through the air. The 4 spiral drills suddenly disappeared, and then suddenly appeared less than 100 meters away from the razor mech. Food. Hungry. The razor mech obviously did not react, still holding up the battle axe, and swinging it vigorously. 2 thunder dragons roared, and blasted towards the Azure Dragon mech. Boom. The spiral drill instantly pierced the razor mech's chest, penetrated from the back, and opened a large hole with a diameter of 2 meters in front of the chest. Squeak. The razor mech was severely damaged, and electric sparks flew. Xia Xingchen's blow also destroyed a small part of the cockpit, and Snake's left half of the body was shattered. However, Snake did not fall down. Many grey tentacles spread out from the wound on his half of the body, just like tree roots, constantly entangled together, and unexpectedly formed a half-human figure, filling up the damaged half of Snake's body. There are also tentacles in the damaged razor mecha that are constantly spreading, constantly repairing the damaged machine, and covering it with a hard stratum corneum. This Xia Xingchen's pupils suddenly shrank, and something emerged in his mind. It was an insect egg. On the demon star, a strange insect egg parasitizing the demons. In the end, this insect egg was captured by the king pirates, and fell into the hands of the deputy leader Wan Qianxing. The appearance of the razor mecha is somewhat similar to the mecha parasitized by the insect egg. Boom. Snake and the razor mecha were severely damaged, and their momentum was not weakened, but suddenly increased. A terrible might burst out from him, making Xia Xingchen's heart tremble. At the same time, the earth began to rumble, and a strange sound came from the depths of the huge hole in the ground, and the sound was like someone whispering in his ear. There is more than one parasitic life. Xia Xingchen was upset by the whispering, so he had to concentrate his mental power on the source of faith. A layer of transparent crystal protection appeared around Xia Xingchen's body, forming the shape of a pyramid. In an instant, Xia Xingchen's mind was clear, and the whispering was driven out of his mind, which shocked his spirit. Ah. It's so painful. Who is it? Who is talking in my head? Nia covered his head with both hands. His face was extremely distorted because of pain, rolling on the ground, screaming loudly, as if he was crazy. Nia had just fought with Snake. His mental power was exhausted, and he was severely injured. He was already at the end of his strength. This whisper was a strange mental attack. Nia was completely unable to resist and was in great pain. This is very strange. We need to think about it carefully. Xia Xingchen frowned, and he had already made up his mind. The Azure Dragon mech flew to Nia's mech, and with a wave of his hand, he put him and the mech into his personal space. Swish. The wings of the sky behind the Azure Dragon mech flashed, and the next moment it was already 1,000 meters away. Boom. Not long after Xia Xingchen left, the second huge beam of light gushed out from the ground, like a spear of light, piercing the sky. A huge figure appeared and disappeared in the light. Lost world, an abandoned town. Neo. Nia. Endless whispers rang in Nia's ears. No. Nia turned over and sat up, sweating profusely, and found that he was sleeping on a simple wooden bed. Xia Xingchen stood beside the wooden bed, smiling, and handed over the high-energy compressed biscuits in his hand, saying softly, I have bandaged your wounds simply for you. It's nothing serious. Eat something. Nia lowered his head and found that his body was wrapped in bandages. He felt a cool sensation on the wounds, which was obviously sprayed with coagulant. Thank you for saving me. What's your name? Nia stood up, which moved his wound and made him grimace in pain, but he still stood up and bowed to Xia Xingchen to thank him. Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen said lightly. Xia Xingchen? Nia was stunned, with a look of surprise on his face, and blurted out, Are you Xia Xingchen? The person Snake mentioned? Chapter 1440 Alliance. As soon as Nia said this, he realized that something was wrong and immediately shut up, but it was too late. His face turned pale and blue, and he was quite embarrassed. Snake did send a message to Nia, with the purpose of asking him to rush to the target location immediately, to surround and kill Xia Xingchen. Nia never thought that a person he wanted to kill would actually save his life. Xia Xingchen knew what Nia was thinking by looking at his expression. However, Snake had been parasitized by an unknown creature, and now was not the time to worry about this trivial matter, so he waved his hand and said to Nia, You have rested well. If you have rested well, tell me in detail what happened to Snake. What is the thing parasitizing him? And the mysterious whisper, No, I don't know more than you. Nia shook his head, his face painful, unwilling to recall the painful memory before. Then you will tell me in detail everything that happened since you met Snake. Xia Xingchen said to Nia with a serious expression. Well, I met Snake at the agreed location. There was a pillar of light that went up to the sky, and there was a huge deep pit on the ground. Snake was standing in the middle of the pillar of light in his mecha. He had no scars on his body, but his expression was very painful. He covered his head with his hands and said that someone was talking in his head and asked me to help him open his head and find that person. At that time, I knew that Snake was wrong. He was crazy. But who could drive a determined legendary mecha master crazy in such a short time? Later, strange tentacles came out of Snake's ears. I just asked a question, and he started to attack me like crazy. At that time, I realized that Snake was no longer himself, but was parasitized by an unknown life. Later, it was a fierce battle. I was no match for Snake, and in desperation, I sent out a distress signal. In the end, only you came to save me. Nia thought for a while, before sitting back on the wooden bed and roughly recounting what happened to him. Maybe because of panic, Nia did not say it in detail. However, Xia Xingchen nodded repeatedly and deduced a lot of useful information from Nia's narration. After Nia finished speaking, Xia Xingchen paced back and forth in the room, constantly coming up with hypotheses in his mind and then overturning them, thinking over and over again. His expression became more and more solemn, and the original faint smile disappeared. After a long time, Xia Xingchen finally stopped, walked in front of Nia, and said, I have some insights. Do you want to listen to them? Yeah. What insights? Nia nodded quickly. I have seen parasitic life more than once. In the universe, parasitism is the most effective way of survival. I have seen a metal life called Crimson that can parasitize on a mecha. It uses the mecha master as a battery to control the mecha. However, Crimson is different from the parasitic life we have encountered. Crimson itself has no mental power. The life we encountered obviously has its own mental power, and it is extremely powerful, not inferior to our legendary mecha masters. Crimson's IQ is not high. At best it is a war weapon, not a life. But what we encountered this time is obviously an extremely special life. It is very likely that it evolved naturally. Xia Xingchen said slowly. Metal life. I have also heard of it. Obviously, the thing parasitizing snake is not metal. I have also not heard of metal life that can directly parasitize humans. This is a carbon-based life that can parasitize humans. Nia nodded, agreeing with Xia Xingchen's point of view, but he didn't quite understand. Why are you talking about this now? What's the significance? It's of great significance. Xia Xingchen shook his head and said in a deep voice, have you ever thought about this parasitic life, parasitizing snake, but why can it control the mecha? This? Nia was speechless. He really hadn't thought about this question. There are several possibilities. Xia Xingchen had already made several assumptions. The first one is that this parasitic creature can steal Snake's memory and has a super learning ability. While spying on Snake's memory, it learned to drive a mecha in a very short time. This possibility, I think it is extremely low. Indeed, if there is such a terrifying creature in the universe, it would have been the overlord of the universe long ago. How could it be trapped in the broken dimension of the lost world? Nia also nodded repeatedly. The second type is that this kind of parasitic creature knows how to operate mechas. Xia Xingchen said. This is impossible. Nia immediately smiled and shook his head. Mecha technology is not a common technology in the universe. In fact, as far as I know, only humans and a few alien races have mecha technology. Parasitic creatures basically have no technology of their own, not to mention that they know how to drive mechas, which is nonsense. You are right. Xia Xingchen looked at Nia, nodded slightly, and agreed with him. But if this kind of parasitic life has a high IQ, parasitizes on humans, imitates humans and has long infiltrated human society, then it is not surprising that they know how to drive mechas. Nia's body trembled, and a look of horror appeared on his face. Xia Xingchen's speculation is very likely. Moreover, if the speculation is true, human society has long been infiltrated by this kind of alien, and the neighbors and friends around him are actually disgusting tentacles that make people's scalps numb, then it is an extremely terrifying thing. It's very serious, maybe more serious than we thought. Xia Xingchen pulled a chair over and sat in front of Nia, looking at him. Now only the two of us are aware of this. We must find a way to survive, escape from the lost world, spread this possibility, and let more people be alert to them. Nia was stunned and looked at Xia Xingchen in surprise. What are you doing? Xia Xingchen stretched out his right hand to Nia. Cooperation. I didn't intend to cooperate with anyone. But now the situation is serious. I'm not strong enough. Only cooperation. You saved my life. Of course I'm willing to cooperate with you. Nia shrugged and stretched out his hand to Xia Xingchen. The two hands were tightly clasped together. Xia Xingchen, what should we do next? In the previous conversation, Nia had discovered that Xia Xingchen had extremely high leadership and insight, and his thinking was also extremely meticulous. Next step. Xia Xingchen sat on the chair with his fingers crossed at his chin, his eyes flickering in the darkness. Collect intelligence. Our current intelligence is insufficient to support my inference. We need manpower to collect more information about this parasite. Manpower. I do know a friend who is the leader of another 3-person team. Maybe we can form a temporary alliance with them and exchange intelligence. Nia's eyes lit up. Chapter 1441 Whisper in Sleep. Although the other 3-person team has a low chance of success, we have to give it a try at this point. Xia Xingchen nodded and agreed to Nia's suggestion. Great. Nia stood up excitedly. I'll contact Amanda immediately. Amanda? Xia Xingchen was slightly startled. Amanda was the only female among the 24 contestants, and she was a rare black person among the legendary Mecha Masters, so he had some impression of her. An abandoned mine. Xia Xingchen and Nia drove the mecha and stopped above the mine. Xia Xingchen looked at Nia and asked, is it here? Nia nodded, yes. This is the hiding place of Amanda and the other 3. Swish. In the mine, a mecha flew towards Xia Xingchen and Nia, and the driver was a white man. George. Nia greeted the mecha master opposite enthusiastically. Where's Amanda? George's face was pale, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, and he looked haggard. He whispered, she's waiting for you to inside. Okay. Xia Xingchen and Nia looked at each other and then followed George into the deep and dark tunnel of the mine. Deep in the mine, in a huge hole, Xia Xingchen and Nia met another mecha master. He was a red man with brown hair tied into many small braids. Nia called him Ptolemy. Ptolemy was very enthusiastic. He walked up to Nia and hugged him. He looked at Xia Xingchen with vigilant eyes and asked, "Nia, who is he? Where is the venomous snake with you?" Nia shook his head helplessly and said lightly, "Oh, he is my savior. As for Snake, there were some accidents. This is why I came to you." "Where is Amanda?" Xia Xingchen's identity is somewhat special, so she discussed with Nia in advance and tried not to reveal her identity. He bowed to Ptolemy and George as a greeting. "Amanda is sick and is resting in the room inside." Ptolemy looked strange and hesitated. "Sick?" Nia was startled, staring at Ptolemy with grey eyes, and then turned to George. "Are you hiding something from me, George? Why do you look so bad?" George was holding a cup and pouring strong coffee into his mouth, muttering, "I just haven't slept for a few days." "What's the fuss?" Legendary mecha masters broke through the gene lock and had the ability to change the secretion of hormones by the pituitary gland. If legendary mecha masters want, they can control the brain to secrete a large amount of anti-sleep hormones and can go up to 7 days or even half a month without sleep. Of course, doing so will cause great damage to the brain. And not sleeping does not mean not resting. Meditation is the best way to rest. But George needs to rely on strong coffee to help him refresh himself and resist sleep. Nia's observation ability is not as sharp as Xia Xingchen's, and he also felt that something was strange. Bang, bang, bang. From deep inside the tunnel, a dull knocking sound was heard. "What's that sound?" Nia and Xia Xingchen immediately stood up and looked at each other. "Nothing. Maybe you heard it wrong." Ptolemy stood up in panic and blocked Nia's way. Although Ptolemy was fast and blocked Nia, Xia Xingchen was even faster and had already rushed into the depths of the tunnel. Bang, bang, bang. At the end of the tunnel, there was a huge iron door. The iron door was rusty and had many protrusions on it. It seemed that someone was constantly knocking on the door with a heavy object. From under the crack of the iron door, a scarlet liquid slowly flowed out. It was blood. Xia Xingchen frowned and walked out of the door carefully. Boom. Less than 1 meter away from the iron door collapsed with a bang, and smoke and dust filled the air. In the smoke and dust, a figure was crawling on the ground, groaning in pain. "Amanda?" Xia Xingchen was startled. The panoramic image scanned through the smoke and dust, and it was a human female. He rushed over, squatted on the ground, and helped Amanda up. There was a huge wound on Amanda's forehead, and even the white skull could be seen, and blood was pouring out. She was tied with heavy iron chains, and her hands and feet were tightly tied. The back of the fallen iron door was covered with blood. Xia Xingchen was shocked. Amanda was tied up all over, but she actually used her head to force the iron door open. Even if she was a legendary mecha master, her willpower was far superior to that of ordinary people and she could endure pain. But how much strong willpower was needed to do this? "Amanda, tell me, what happened?" Xia Xingchen poured a stream of mental power into Amanda's body. Amanda's eyes slowly opened, and her voice was as weak as a mosquito's murmur. "Be careful. Be careful of George and Ptolemy. They are not human." After saying that, Amanda fainted. At this time, footsteps were heard in the tunnel. George and Ptolemy heard the sound of the iron gate collapsing. They knew they couldn't hide it any longer, so they had to bring Nia over. "Nia, Amanda is crazy," she said. Someone was whispering in her head, constantly hurting her. "There's nothing we can do, we can only lock her up." "But, her condition is getting worse and worse," Ptolemy whispered. "I'm really fed up with this broken place. There must be something down there." I can also hear the horrible whispers, especially in my dreams. "No, I don't need sleep at all. But I can't resist the deep sleepiness. Sleep is like the darkness of the endless abyss, deep and sweet." George poured espresso into his mouth, cursing loudly, but still couldn't resist the sleepiness and kept yawning. Plop. George suddenly fell down, lying on the cold ground, snoring, and actually fell asleep. A legendary mecha master actually fell asleep on the spot while walking. George. Nia walked over and shook George's body, but it was useless. He had to kick him with his boots, but still couldn't wake George up. He had never experienced such a strange and terrifying thing. Whisper in sleep. Nia shuddered and couldn't help but recall the terrible voice that called his name in his sleep. Let's go find Amanda first. Xingchen is with her. I hope nothing will happen. Nia has realized that Amanda is likely to have been parasitized. In other words, Xia Xingchen, who is with Amanda, may be in danger. Nia walked forward quickly and didn't notice that Ptolemy behind him suddenly turned his eyes upwards and the black pupils disappeared completely, moving to the back of the eye sockets, replaced by a cold white. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1442 Lies. Nia was anxious and ran wildly. Finally, he reached the end of the tunnel. In front of an iron gate, he saw Xia Xingchen holding Amanda, a black woman covered in blood. Xia Xingchen. Be careful of Amanda, she has been parasitized. Nia yelled at Xia Xingchen. She has been parasitized. Xia Xingchen was slightly stunned. Amanda had just said that George and Ptolemy were parasitized, so she was locked up. Xia Xingchen's omniscience domain unfolded, and the hologram covered Amanda's body. It was found that in addition to her serious injuries, there was no sign of other life in her body. Who is lying? Amanda? Or George and Ptolemy? Xia Xingchen looked in the direction of Nia, only to see him running towards him in a hurry. Behind him, Ptolemy had a hideous face. Several tentacles emerged from his forehead, and he was holding a laser rifle in his hand. He had already aimed at Nia and pulled the trigger. Starry sky barrier. Xia Xingchen didn't have time to explain and pointed in the direction behind Nia, and his mental power condensed into a mental power barrier that flashed with brilliant starlight. Boom. The purple laser beam hit the starry sky barrier and saved Nia's life. Nia turned back in shock, and when he saw Ptolemy's appearance, he immediately understood and exclaimed, Ptolemy. The person who was parasitized was not Amanda, but you. Humph. The reaction was quite fast. But you have fallen into our trap. None of you can escape. You must die. Ptolemy laughed coldly, and an unclear strange sound came out of his mouth, which was surprisingly human language. But it was not Ptolemy who made the sound, but the parasitic life in his body. Whoosh. Ptolemy's footsteps slammed on the ground, and his figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment he was in front of the starry sky barrier. Boom. Ptolemy simply punched the starry sky barrier. The starry sky barrier, that even a laser rifle could not shatter, was shattered under Ptolemy's fist. Xia Xingchen's body shook, and a line of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Part of the force of Ptolemy's fist was transmitted along the starry sky barrier, and it actually hurt his body. It is impossible for humans to have such terrifying strength and speed. Nia was shocked, and his face turned pale. The reason why humans are the overlords of the galaxy is not because of how strong their bodies are. It is because of wisdom and technology. The lack of human flesh can be compensated by mechas. Mechas are the second body for humans. However, the strength and speed shown by Ptolemy have already exceeded the limits of humans. He is indeed no longer a human, but an alien. Kill. The tentacles on Ptolemy's forehead fluttered, and there were protrusions under his face, as if there were bugs crawling under his skin. His expression was extremely ferocious. He shouted and strode towards Nia. Nia felt a strong sense of oppression, and his body couldn't stop shaking. His mecha was still in the previous mine. Without driving a mecha, he had no capital to compete with a monster like Ptolemy. Get lost. A loud shout rang out. Xia Xingchen carried Amanda on his shoulders with one hand, walked forward slowly, and stretched out the other hand in the direction of Ptolemy. Ptolemy just jumped into the air, and short tentacles stretched out from the fingers of both hands, twisted into sharp claws, and stabbed towards Nia's throat. However, his figure suddenly stopped in midair, and his chest was obviously sunken, like an invisible fist, punching hard. Boom. Ptolemy was like a reverse shooting meteor, flying backwards, hitting the wall of the cave hard, and his whole body disappeared into it. Mental force impact. It's obviously not amplified by the equipment, but the power is so terrifying. Nia was stunned, looking at Xia Xingchen, who was walking slowly with astonishment, as if looking at a monster. He's not dead yet. Xia Xingchen's expression was solemn, and his vitality is getting stronger and stronger. I'll drive the mecha to hold him back. You take Amanda away immediately. Yes. Nia knew that this was not the time to hesitate, so he carried Amanda on his back and ran along the tunnel towards his mecha. Boom. Not long after Nia ran over, an explosion occurred deep in the tunnel. The cave wall collapsed, and a black and red mecha appeared. The driver was Ptolemy, who had just been blown away by Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen had also taken out the Qinglang mecha from his personal space, sat in the cockpit, and stared coldly at Ptolemy. Human. You are strong. But not strong enough. Ptolemy roared sharply, his eyes were bloodshot, and he roared at Xia Xingchen like a beast. I don't care what you are. If you want to fight, then fight. What nonsense. Xia Xingchen shouted coldly, suddenly stepped on the power pedal, and the wings of the sky behind the Qinglang mecha appeared and disappeared, and the speed increased to the limit, rushing towards Ptolemy. Boom. The two mechas collided with each other, and fought hand to hand, causing a huge explosion. The whole earth was roaring, and rocks kept falling from above. Whoosh whoosh. Nia carried Amanda on his back, panting, and finally ran to the last mine, and entered his mecha. The body of a legendary mecha master certainly couldn't be so weak that he would be out of breath after just running a few steps. However, Nia was seriously injured in the battle with Snake before. Although Xia Xingchen helped him treat it, his injuries have not yet healed. Nia put Amanda aside and sat in the driving seat of the mecha, and then he felt a little relieved. With the protection of the mecha, Nia felt safer. Escape or support Xia Xingchen? Nia hesitated for a while, and finally chose to obey Xia Xingchen's order and escape from the mine first. It's not that Nia is disloyal. His injuries were very serious, and he had almost no fighting power. Even if he reluctantly went back to help Xia Xingchen, it would not only be useless, but would only cause trouble. I'm sorry, I can only go first. I hope you will be blessed. Nia took a deep look at the depths of the tunnel, where there were continuous violent explosions, and it was obvious that the battle was very fierce. But the mecha engine started, and the jet behind him was fully activated. Two white smokes were like flying wings, and Nia's mecha quickly evacuated to the outside of the mine. However, a mecha had blocked the exit at some point, and its huge body blocked the tunnel tightly, with the momentum of one man blocking the pass and 10,000 men unable to open it. George. Nia was surprised to find that the person blocking his way was George, who had fallen asleep before. In the cockpit of the mecha, George was still sleeping, snoring like thunder, and smacking his lips from time to time, with a strange smile on the corner of his mouth, drooling, as if he was having a sweet dream. Two grey tentacles emerged from George's ears, trembling rhythmically. Obviously, George was also parasitized by this strange creature. Chapter 1443, Alliance's first pharmacist. George, you. Nia was horrified, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. He knew that he had no strength to fight now. If George attacked, then he and Amanda would surely die. Whoosh. George had been controlled by the parasitic life, and without any mercy, he drove the mech, and rushed over with a laser sword in hand. Damn it. Nia dodged in panic, and the right shoulder of the mech was cut off, and his face became even uglier. Boom boom boom. George's mech turned in mid-air, and the laser cannon on his shoulder locked the target, continuously firing laser beams, bombarding Nia's mech. Bang. Nia was hit hard, and could not stand steadily, and the mech fell backwards to the ground. But George stepped hard on the power pedal, and the mech disappeared out of thin air. He used the teleportation skill, and came directly in front of Nia, stepped one foot on the chest of the mech to prevent it from standing up, and a bloody light flashed in his eyes, and the laser sword in his hand, stabbed towards the cockpit. Boom. At this moment, a section of the double helix spear pierced through George's mecha chest. He looked incredible, and turned his head to look, just bumping into Xia Xingchen's cold eyes. The Qinglang mecha was covered with scars, and Xia Xingchen's face was as pale as paper. His forehead was covered with crystal sweat beads. Obviously, he didn't gain much advantage in the battle with Ptolemy just now. Relying on its powerful self-healing ability, the Qinglang mecha was slowly repairing, but Xia Xingchen's mental power was seriously consumed, and it was impossible to recover in a short time. Die. Xia Xingchen shouted, and the double helix spear in the hands of the Qinglang mecha burst into millions of thunderous lights. Boom. George's mecha couldn't withstand such a high energy attack, and it exploded instantly, and turned into a ball of fire. In the flames, George's body was swallowed by high energy, and should have turned into ashes instantly. However, the life parasitic on George had a strong desire to survive. Countless grey tentacles rushed out of his body, and twisted into a layer of grey stratum corneum on the surface of his body. The stratum corneum was constantly burned by the flames, and the tentacles were shaking wildly, condensing again and again. Xia Xingchen's heart moved, and he stretched out his hand. A space energy enveloped George's body, and pulled him into the portable space. Let's go. Xia Xingchen turned his head, and whispered to Nia, blocking the rear, blocking Ptolemy, and covering Nia's breakout. Boom. The mine collapsed. 2 mechas flew out of the mine and flew away. Abandoned town. In a dilapidated wooden house. Xia Xingchen, you saved me again. Oh, no, twice. I really don't know how to thank you. Nia was very excited to be able to escape and ascend to heaven, and said to Xia Xingchen, we are companions. Xia Xingchen said lightly, but his eyes were looking at the black woman Amanda on the wooden bed, and his brows were frowned. Amanda's injuries were very serious. Even if she was put into the medical cabin in time, she might not be able to recover in a short time. However, Xia Xingchen discovered that Amanda's injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Obviously, this terrifying self-healing ability does not belong to humans. Her wounds healed so quickly. Could it be that she was also parasitized? Nia also discovered this situation, and a flash of panic flashed in his eyes. He was like a frightened bird, and was already scared by that kind of parasitic life. What should we do? Kill her? Nia's eyes flickered, and he was hesitant. She may have been parasitized. While she hasn't woken up, we'd better get rid of her to prevent future troubles. No, she is not parasitized. But, Xia Xingchen shook his head slowly. Under the scanning perception of the omniscience field, he knew very well that there was no parasite in Amanda's body. However, the speed at which her injuries healed was too amazing, which was very abnormal. That's right. I'm not parasitized. Amanda suddenly opened her eyes, and her pair of black eyes shone like obsidian. Amanda turned over, and got out of bed, standing on the floor barefoot to move her body. She was slender and well built, with black skin that shone brightly like a black diamond. Amanda, you? Nia was surprised and delighted. Looking at the rejuvenated Amanda, he was surprised. Amanda's injuries were much more serious than his, but at this moment, Amanda's injuries had healed, while he was still seriously injured, and unable to fight. Amanda smiled, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, looked at Xia Xingchen, and whispered, thank you for saving me. What I'm most grateful for is that you are willing to believe in me. Therefore, I'm willing to tell you my secret without reservation. You must be wondering why my injuries healed so quickly? Xia Xingchen nodded gently. He was indeed confused. Superpowers are the secret of every mecha master. If the enemy knows your superpowers, you will be targeted. Therefore, hiding your superpowers is the way to survive in the alliance. For example, I don't know what Nia's superpower is. Amanda smiled and glanced at Nia. My superpower is very special. It is self-healing. I can use my mental power to stimulate cells, and stimulate the vitality of cells. Therefore, my injuries will heal quickly. In fact, as long as my brain and heart are not injured, no matter how serious the injury is, I can heal it. Self-healing superpower. Xia Xingchen was stunned. This superpower is indeed rare. No wonder you hit the iron door with your head and smashed it open. Xia Xingchen suddenly realized, for others, this kind of self-harm behavior is stupid. But for you who have a strong self-healing ability, it is a very normal behavior. Nia, stretch out your hand. Amanda suddenly turned to look at Nia. What for? Nia looked surprised, but still stretched out his hand. Amanda grabbed Nia's wrist, and her mental power spread over, exploring his whole body. Her brows were slightly furrowed. After a long time, she suddenly laughed. Your injuries are indeed serious. Fortunately, they were properly treated, and now there is nothing serious. Amanda lifted up her clothes and took out a glass tube from the end layer. There was a light blue liquid inside. She handed it to Nia and said, "Drink this healing potion, and your injuries will heal soon." "Ah. Thank you." Nia was overjoyed. He quickly took the glass tube with both hands and drank it with his head tilted back. Xia Xingchen was surprised to find that there was life energy bursting out of Nia's body, repairing his damaged internal organs. "Haha, I forgot to tell you. Amanda is the best pharmacist in the Alliance. Her special healing potion is more effective than the medical cabin." Nia felt the pain in his body suddenly eased. His whole body was filled with warmth, and he felt indescribably comfortable. He said with a smile. Chapter 14, 44,000 brainworms. The first pharmacist in the Alliance? Xia Xingchen was startled and looked at Amanda in surprise, looking at her with new eyes. To become a pharmacist, not only talent is needed, but also a lot of time is needed to learn medical knowledge. Every pharmacist is at least a doctor of medicine. That's right. Amanda nodded. My self-healing ability is very special. I have had a wish since I was a child, which is to study the secrets of my body and benefit mankind. In this way, mankind will not be troubled by diseases, and lifespan will be greatly extended. Therefore, I chose to study medicine and study at the best medical school in the empire, and became a pharmacist. However, my current research results are only the healing potion just now, which is still far from my goal. Benefit mankind. Xia Xingchen respected Amanda. "Amanda, those parasitic creatures," Nia said. "I don't know much. If there is a sample of this creature, even if it is only a little bit, I can analyze some information." Amanda shrugged her shoulders and said helplessly, "Samples? I have some here." Xia Xingchen's heart moved, and he took out George's charred body from his personal space. In fact, George was completely dead. However, his body still had vitality, all because of the strange grey tentacles. "Great." Amanda's eyes lit up, and she said to Xia Xingchen and Nia, "I will immediately dissect the body and find out the true face of this parasite. You two should step aside." "Step aside? Not good. Although this parasite looks ugly, it is actually very dangerous," Nia said hurriedly. "Don't worry. In fact, I have also been parasitized by this creature. However, due to my strong self-healing and rejection ability, they cannot survive in my body." Amanda smiled confidently. Xia Xingchen and Nia looked at each other, turned around and went downstairs, leaving Amanda alone upstairs to dissect the body. Downstairs, Nia looked at the dark space storm in the distance, lit a cigarette, and asked, "Xia Xingchen, what should we do next?" Xia Xingchen whispered, "I have some plans. However, we need to find out the information about the parasites from Amanda, at least how they spread and parasitize in the human body." "That's right." Nia sighed, took a deep puff of cigarette, threw the cigarette butt on the ground, and stomped it out. When Amanda was dissecting George's body, Xia Xingchen suddenly felt a wave of soul fluctuations. "Master, I have destroyed the closest group of star-eating insects to the Villa tribe, and accumulated a lot of energy, which can evolve into the most perfect state." The voice of the star-eating insect Queen Xiaobei sounded in Xia Xingchen's heart. "Xiaobei?" Xia Xingchen was stunned, closed his eyes, and found that he could really communicate with Xiaobei. This is clearly another universe, another dimension. Why can I contact Xiaobei? Xia Xingchen was surprised and happy, and soon he understood. He signed a soul contract with Xiaobei, not through radio waves, radiation or other means of communication. It is through the soul. The soul is the most mysterious energy in the universe. It is not blocked by space, and can cross dimensions. "Xiaobei, I'm in another dimension now, and I'm in great trouble. Can you come and help me?" Xia Xingchen said hurriedly. Xiaobei has evolved into a complete body, with strength beyond the star level, and is a quasi-celestial being. If Xiaobei can enter the lost world, then all difficulties will be solved. "No, I don't have the ability to cross the dimensional space," Xiaobei said truthfully. "We star devourers don't have spatial abilities. Master, I'm sorry, I can't help you." Spatial abilities. Xia Xingchen was also worried. There are many super technologies on the star domain arc, but there is no technology that can cross dimensions. Wait a minute. Just when Xia Xingchen was disappointed, a flash of inspiration came to his mind, and he suddenly remembered a creature with spatial abilities that can cross dimensions. Tunnel worms. Tunnel worms? Tunnel worms do have spatial abilities and can dig wormholes to enter from one dimension to another. However, tunnel worms are very rare. The danger of the master is imminent. Where can I find tunnel worms? And at least they must be stellar level tunnel worms? Xiaobei said. Haha, I do know where there is a stellar level tunnel worm. Xia Xingchen laughed. I'll give you a coordinate. You rush to the asteroid belt, where the coordinates are. Catch a tunnel worm named Erichi. You should be able to do it, right? Xiaobei immediately said, it's just stellar level. This is a piece of cake. After Xia Xingchen finished giving the order, Xiaobei took the Star Devourer warriors of the Villa tribe and manipulated the huge starship seized from the mechanical tribe and quickly flew towards the asteroid belt where Erichi was. Amanda walked down the stairs, breathed a sigh of relief, and threw the blood-stained gloves into the trash can. What's going on? Xia Xingchen and Nia were waiting downstairs. When they saw Amanda coming downstairs, they immediately stood up and asked, we have gained a lot. Let's talk slowly. Amanda walked to Nia, took the cigarette from his mouth, threw it on the ground, and stomped it out, and said softly, smoking is harmful to your health. This little nicotine won't do anything to me. Nia shrugged and lit another cigarette. Amanda looked at Nia helplessly, ignored him, sat in front of Xia Xingchen, and said, if you want to know anything, just ask me. What does this parasite really look like? Xia Xingchen took a breath and asked, see for yourself. Amanda handed Xia Xingchen a photo. In the photo, it was the body of a grey creature. This creature looked like a grey octopus, but it had tens of thousands of tentacles, much more than an octopus. This is an intelligent creature with more than one brain. In fact, each tentacle has an organ similar to a brain. Amanda explained. There is a brain on each tentacle. Xia Xingchen was stunned. Doesn't that mean that this creature has thousands of brains? You can think so. Amanda nodded. I have never seen a creature with so many brains. However, what is certain is that this creature could not have evolved naturally. It may be a genetic weapon made by some super civilization. I will temporarily name it Thousand Brain Worm. Very likely. Xia Xingchen nodded, agreeing with Amanda's inference. Although the universe is so vast and full of wonders, it is impossible for a creature to evolve with thousands of brains at the same time. Chapter 1445 The Only Choice. The strength of mental power is directly related to the brain. The thousand brain worm has thousands of brains, which gives it a unique advantage in mental power. What is the transmission medium of the thousand brain worm parasitizing the human body? Xia Xingchen asked. This is what he cares about most. All parasitic life forms have transmission media. Some are transmitted through food, and some are transmitted through contact. As long as we understand the transmission method of the thousand brain worm and take precautions, we can contain this terrifying creature. I haven't figured it out completely. Amanda shook her head in annoyance, but I have a bold guess. Well, you are a professional, just say it. Xia Xingchen nodded and looked at Amanda expectantly. Okay. Amanda took a breath and said, let me first tell you how George, Ptolemy and I encountered the thousand brains worms, and were parasitized by them. While avoiding the space storm, a huge deep pit suddenly cracked open in the ground, and a beam of light shot up into the sky. Ptolemy was just covered by the beam of light, and George and I were also illuminated by it. After returning, Ptolemy began to have nightmares, and had a fever. After taking the potion I prepared, Ptolemy quickly recovered. In fact, he had already been parasitized at that time. The thousand brains worms live underground. Xia Xingchen nodded slightly and speculated, based on the depth of the pit, it should be thousands of meters, dormant in the depths of the earth. When they wake up, they will release energy to form a huge beam of light. The larvae of the thousand brain worm are hidden in the beam of light. People who are enveloped by the beam of light or exposed to the light will be parasitized. The early symptoms of parasitism are constant nightmares, thinking that someone is whispering in the brain. Then, the situation becomes more and more serious, and insomnia and hallucinations will occur. In the end, just like George, the body is controlled by the thousand brain worm. Amanda looked at Xia Xingchen in surprise. That's right. Your inference is correct. This is exactly what I want to say. Xia Xingchen, Amanda. Nia listened at the side and couldn't help shivering all over. He said in panic, I have also been exposed to the beam of light and heard someone whispering in my brain. Could it be that I have been parasitized by the thousand brain worm? Don't worry, I have thoroughly examined your body. You were once parasitized by the thousand brain worm. However, the number of larvae that entered your body was very small, and you are a legendary strongman with a certain self-defense ability. The defense mechanism of your body will kill the thousand brain worm. Xia Xingchen comforted Nia and reassured him. Nia was slightly relieved, but his face was still frightened. After the thousand brain worm parasitizes a human body, where does it hide? If you fight against a mecha master controlled by the thousand brain worm, where is the weak spot? Xia Xingchen continued to ask. Amanda raised her hand, pointed to her temple, and whispered, the brain. After the thousand brain worm parasitizes a human body, it will eat the human brain. However, it will curl up its body in the cranial cavity of the brain. Have you heard of Betty? Xia Xingchen and Nia both shook their heads. Amanda explained, Betty is the name of a parasite, a creature from a distant era on Earth. It's normal that you haven't heard of it. Betty parasitizes in the body of a fish, eats the tongue of the fish, and then acts as the tongue of the fish. Therefore, Betty is also called the shrinking head fish louse. The parasitic method of the thousand brain worm is somewhat similar to Betty. They eat the human brain, and then act as the human brain, to maintain the normal functioning of the human body. In other words, the thousand brain worm survives on behalf of the parasitized human. Xia Xingchen got goosebumps all over his body when he heard this, and Nia was even paler and kept silent. We have figured out the basic situation. Xia Xingchen took a breath to calm himself down, and said to Nia and Amanda, we have two goals now. First, tell the other contestants about the thousand brain worm. Second, do everything we can to survive. I have always had a feeling that there is a close relationship between the thousand brain worm and the Ascendant Alliance. You mean, the thousand brain worm is a biological weapon created by the Ascendant Alliance? Nia said in surprise. I don't know yet. Xia Xingchen shook his head and whispered, the truth may be more terrible than you think. The space storm is approaching, and we have less and less time. Amanda lost her mecha, and you, Nia, are still seriously injured. I found a valley before, which is very hidden, and easy to defend, but difficult to attack. Amanda will go there to further study the thousand brain worm. You are responsible for protecting her, and I will tell more people about the intelligence of the thousand brain worm, and try to win over other mecha masters, to tide over the difficulties together. You alone. It's too dangerous. And other mecha masters are hostile to you. They regard you as a thorn in their eyes. They will not believe what you say at all, but will attack you together. Nia's face changed and said, I know. But we have no other choice. Don't we? Xia Xingchen looked at Amanda and Nia with a calm look. Amanda and Nia fell into silence for a while. They all knew that Xia Xingchen's plan was the best choice. If they wanted to save more people, there was no other way to go. Okay. Nia nodded. I will protect Amanda. Amanda also nodded slightly. I will continue to study the thousand brains, and I will inform you immediately, as soon as I have the latest information. Thank you very much. Xia Xingchen said nothing more, and his body slowly rose into the air, and flew to the cockpit of the Azure Dragon Mech. Xia Xingchen, you must come back alive. Nia shouted loudly. Amanda and I are waiting for you in the valley. See you then. Don't worry. I know my limits. Xia Xingchen smiled, and turned his head resolutely. The Azure Dragon Mech flashed under the lead grey sky and disappeared. Xia Xingchen is indeed a hero as rumored. Amanda looked up at the sky, with a strange light flashing in her eyes. Hero. Indeed, this era needs heroes. Heroes like Xia Xingchen. Nia sighed. Unfortunately, heroes are often short of breath. I hope Xia Xingchen is a man favored by the goddess of luck as rumored. Whoosh. The Azure Dragon Mech flew in the dark clouds. Above the clouds, there is no starry sky, only endless space storms. The entire lost world is wrapped in the space storm, like a broken continent suspended in the air. At this moment, the space storm is like a huge tornado, howling around the lost world, and the safe area is only 100,000 square kilometers. Like the eye of the tornado, 100,000 square kilometers sounds big. In fact, this is only the area of a large city in the Earth era. Chapter 1446 Internal Fight. The entire lost world seemed to be dead silent on the surface. Except for a few people, who were killed by the Thousand Brain Worm. The other 24 legendary Mecha Masters all showed their magical powers and hid themselves. They would never show up until the final decisive battle. Panorama. Above an abandoned building, Xia Xingchen drove the King Long Mecha in midair, frowned, and a spiritual field expanded silently, covering the entire building. This building has a basement, and there are 3 Mecha Masters hiding in the basement. They are a team. In Xia Xingchen's mind, the figures of the 3 Mecha Masters were clearly visible. Let's start with them. Xia Xingchen landed in the King Long Mecha in front of the building. There was no sound in the basement. The 3 people hid very well, and were very patient. They must have discovered Xia Xingchen, but they did not act rashly. It was obvious that they wanted to avoid the battle. You 3 don't need to hide. I know you are in there. Xia Xingchen stood at the entrance of the basement, and a spiritual power wave spread out, and the voice sounded directly in the minds of the 3 people. How did he find us? He knew we were hiding here. This mental fluctuation seems to be Xia Xingchen from the Glory team. A chaotic mental fluctuation came from the basement. After a few seconds, the mental fluctuation calmed down, but there was still no sign of the steel door of the basement opening. Squeak. The screen of the King Long Mecha lit up, and a man's face was revealed. He was a yellow man, between 40 and 50 years old, with a slightly pale face, in the dark basement. Hello, Xia Xingchen. My name is Ximante. In the Alliance, I'm just an unknown person who is not worth mentioning. Ximante said to Xia Xingchen with flickering eyes. Hello. Xia Xingchen smiled faintly. It was indeed the first time he heard the name Ximante. This person was not from the top 10 teams in the Alliance, but like himself, he was selected by the 14 elders, and had the opportunity to become an awakener. Ximante's mental fluctuations were not strong, just a Planeta re-level strongman. However, he was definitely not a mediocre hand. On the contrary, those who can be favored by the elders have their own outstanding qualities. Xia Xingchen, no matter how you found us hiding here, I advise you to leave immediately. You are not welcome here. Ximante was aggressive, and did not even give Xia Xingchen a chance to explain. He directly ordered him to leave. Senior Zeman. Xia Xingchen was respectful. I came to see you without any hostility. Moreover, I have important information to tell you. Important information? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? What information do you have? Just tell me directly. Ximante did not believe Xia Xingchen. Okay. Xia Xingchen answered very straightforwardly and directly passed a document to Ximante, which contained relevant information about the Thousand Brain Worm. After Ximante read it, his face suddenly changed. He immediately showed the information to the other 2 Mecha Masters. The Thousand Brain Worm is such a terrifying creature. This information is very important. Xia Xingchen is willing to share such important information with us. It shows his sincerity. The other 2 Mecha Masters lowered their voices and discussed with Ximante. Although their voices were very low, they could not escape Xia Xingchen's panoramic view. Xia Xingchen's heart moved. It seemed that his sincerity had already touched Ximante and the other 2. Things went more smoothly than expected. Xia Xingchen, we have received the information. But we already knew this information. Do you have anything else to say? If not, leave immediately. Ximante had a different face in front of the screen. You guys. Xia Xingchen was stunned, and his chest was suffocated. What about us? Do you think we are afraid of you, and dare not go out to kill you? Ximante said coldly, we are afraid that you have been parasitized by the Thousand Brain Worms. Infect us with them. So, get out now. Otherwise, my mecha is not vegetarian. Okay. Goodbye. Ximante said so much. Xia Xingchen also knew that it was useless to say more, and drove the King Long Mecha away from this area. It's a bad start. Xia Xingchen flew the King Long Mecha to a high altitude and sighed. It doesn't matter. One failure is nothing. I expected it. Xia Xingchen quickly adjusted his mentality. The haze on his face was swept away, and he flew towards the second retreat. Get lost. Go away. We don't believe you. Want to win us over to fight against the 1,000 brain worms? Funny. We are in a life and death trial. The Mecha Master in the second retreat, like Ximante, immediately asked Xia Xingchen to leave after getting the information and threatened him. Xia Xingchen's earnest words were exchanged for bad words, and he could only leave the second retreat in dismay. The third retreat. The 3 Mecha Masters inside were the 3 people who had hunted Xia Xingchen before. As soon as Xia Xingchen revealed his identity, they rushed out and besieged him together. Xia Xingchen really didn't want to fight with his own kind at this time, so he could only flee in a hurry. It's difficult. It's really too difficult. Xia Xingchen fled to a safe place, bandaging his wounds and sighing. Humans are a powerful race. However, humans love war and internal strife too much. Even the Elder Celestials do not have the confidence to destroy humans, support Nicholas, and provoke a civil war between the North and the Galactic Empire. But, we can only keep trying. Xia Xingchen rested for a while, and flew towards the 4th retreat. At the 4th retreat, Xia Xingchen was warmly welcomed. After he stated his purpose, and handed over the information of the 1,000 brain worm, the 3 Mecha Masters of the other side welcomed him warmly and expressed their willingness to join forces with Xia Xingchen to deal with the 1,000 brain worm and escape from the lost world. Is it so easy this time? Xia Xingchen was not overwhelmed by success. Instead, he calmed down and saw that the expressions of the 3 Mecha Masters were a little wrong. Sure enough, in less than 5 minutes, the roar of mechas sounded in the sky. 2 mechas fell from the sky and stood in front of Xia Xingchen. Behind Xia Xingchen, the 3 Mecha Masters also looked at him with malicious smiles on their faces. Xia Xingchen's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip. He was very familiar with the people who came. They were Hellas and Guan Yu from the Iron and Blood team. Xia Xingchen, I finally found you. Hellas's face was full of a ferocious smile. You are so cunning. It took me a lot of time. Captain Hellas, we will sell you the information about Xia Xingchen. You must fulfill your promise. One of the 3 Mecha Masters behind Xia Xingchen had a flattering smile on his face. They had obviously been bribed by Hellas and became his spies. Chapter 1447 Jealousy makes people crazy. Of course. But it's after catching Xia Xingchen. If he escapes, then your reward will be gone. Hellas smiled slightly, folded his arms, and said to the 3 Mecha Masters from a high position. Hellas, you clearly didn't say that before. The 3 Mecha Masters were all stunned and very angry. The white man in the lead stood up and angrily accused Hellas. Rod, watch your words. Who do you think you are talking to? Guan Yu stepped forward, pointed at the Mecha Master named Rod, and shouted loudly, with a bit of a villain's success and a fox-like tiger's power. Rod raised his head and glared at Guan Yu, clenched his fists tightly, and the veins on his forehead were throbbing. Rod, forget it. Forget it. Although it is different from the agreement. But as long as we help Hellas catch Xia Xingchen, we can get the agreed reward. The other 2 Mecha Masters quickly pulled Rod from behind to prevent him from doing anything stupid. Hellas, you actually use this method to make the 3 of us work for you. Together we besiege Xia Xingchen. Okay, I, Rod, admit defeat this time. However, this is a last cooperation. There will definitely not be a next time. Rod said fiercely. All is up to you. Hellas shrugged his shoulders with a sneer on his face. Before Hellas could speak, Rod and the other 2 had already driven the mecha and cut off Xia Xingchen's retreat. Xia Xingchen, don't you like to run away? Keep running. Hellas's eyes fell on Xia Xingchen, his eyes full of sarcasm. Hellick. Xia Xingchen frowned. The grudge between you and me will be settled one day. However, now is not the time. This lost continent is not as simple as it seems on the surface. And haven't you noticed that the signal between the Alliance and us has been interrupted for a long time? Hellick said with an indifferent expression. The space storm is so severe, it may have affected the signal transmission. You still have some last words to say. I'm magnanimous and let you say it freely. 1,000 brain worm. There is a terrifying creature hidden in the lost world. It is called the 1,000 brain worm. It can parasitize in the human cranial cavity, feed on the human brain, and survive as a host. As far as I know, 3 planetary level powerhouses have been attacked by the 1000 brain worm and died. Helic, you are the best of mankind. The future of mankind should be the most important. Can the grudge between the two of us be slowed down for a while? Wait until we get rid of the 1000 brain worm and successfully escape from the lost world. Xia Xingchen tried to convince Helic with emotion and reason. However, Halis yawned impatiently and interrupted Xia Xingchen rudely. I'm sorry, I have no interest in what you said. The future of mankind has nothing to do with me. I want to be an awakener, or even an ascender. I want to be a higher creature that is superior to humans. Helis. You. Xia Xingchen stared at Helis in amazement. He didn't expect him to be so shameless and say such shameless words. Your last words are finished. Die. Helis suddenly burst out with a powerful force. A trident condensed in the hand of the mecha, swept towards the Qinglang mecha, and a half-moon-shaped energy wave broke through the air. Zuanwu. Xia Xingchen felt a chill in his heart. He did not dare to neglect it. He immediately condensed his mental power clone and drove the Zuanwu mecha into battle. The Zuanwu mecha blocked the front of the Qinglang mecha, crossed his arms, and a huge ice shield condensed. Boom. The half-moon-shaped energy wave hit the ice shield firmly. Crack. The ice shield was covered with spider web-like fine cracks, barely shattering. Blocked. Helis looked at his hands in astonishment, his eyes full of disbelief. Xia Xingchen was only at the nebula level. Even if the Black Tortoise mecha had amazing defense, it was impossible for it to block Helis's full strength attack. Oh, I almost forgot. Due to the suppression of the laws of the Lost World, my strength was forcibly suppressed to the planetary level. No wonder the previous attack did not break his shield. Helis immediately understood the reason. It was not that Xia Xingchen was too strong, but that his strength was weakened. But, it doesn't matter. Xia Xingchen, no matter how strong you are, you will definitely die under the siege of 5 planetary level strongmen. Helis shook his head, his eyes fell on Xia Xingchen, and he grinned again. I'm no match for these people. I can only run away. Xia Xingchen glanced at him, and had made up his mind. Wings of the sky. Fly in the sky. Xia Xingchen shouted, and blue wings condensed behind the Azure Dragon mecha. His figure flickered, preparing to escape by force. Xia Xingchen, do you really think you can escape? Guan Yu flew over in a purple mecha, with a sneer on his face, and shouted, space confinement. A vast spiritual energy surged out of Guan Yu's body, condensing into a square strange space in the space, covering Xia Xingchen and the mecha. Xia Xingchen suddenly felt that the space around him was as sticky as cement, as if it had solidified completely. Space ability. Guan Yu, you are also a space ability user like Helis. Xia Xingchen's face changed drastically. Of course. Otherwise, how could Captain Helis agree to let me join Iron and Blood and train me so carefully? Guan Yu's face twisted. Xia Xingchen, your ability is mental telekinesis. This ability is too ordinary. But, like me, you are considered to have great potential by the Alliance? I don't accept it. Why is a rubbish, like you called a genius like me? Shame. It's a great shame. Therefore, I will kill you. Wash away my shame. Guan Yu. Jealousy makes people crazy. You are already crazy. Xia Xingchen looked at Guan Yu and said coldly. Jealous? I would be jealous of you? What a joke. Guan Yu was obviously hit on the heart by what he said. His face suddenly changed. He was angry and shouted, the space is broken. Xia Xingchen, you are about to die. How dare you talk so shamelessly? Suzaku Mecha. Fiery Sunstrike. Xia Xingchen shouted in a low voice, and a crimson figure appeared, instantly turning into a dazzling sun. Endless light and heat burst out from the body of the Suzuki Mecha. Boom. Guan Yu's space confinement was instantly broken, turned into countless fragments, and disappeared into the air. The light faded, and the 5 mecha masters present opened their eyes. Xia Xingchen's 3 mechas had long disappeared, escaping without a trace. Guan Yu was seriously injured by the high energy impact, kneeling on the floor, vomiting blood from his mouth. Waste. Helis looked at Guan Yu coldly. You begged me to give you a chance to kill Xia Xingchen and prove your strength. But you failed. If I take action, Xia Xingchen will never escape. Your strength is too weak. Guan Yu stood up with difficulty, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes were resentful, and he remained silent. Forget it. Xia Xingchen jumped away, which was also within my expectation. I put a tracker on him. He can't escape far. Alice said coldly, taking the lead and driving the mecha in the direction of Xia Xingchen's escape. Chapter 1448 Taking Risks. Swoosh. A green shadow flew out from the lead grey clouds. The wings of the sky behind the Azure Dragon mech flapped quickly, increasing its speed to the limit. Not far behind the Azure Dragon mech, 5 light spots followed. It was Hellas leading 4 planetary level strongmen chasing closely. Damn it. It's the maggot on the tarsal bone. Hellas must have put a tracker on me. In the cockpit, Xia Xingchen's face turned pale, and his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. The space storm around the lost world was raging, and the safe area was getting smaller and smaller. Is there any way to get rid of Hellas? Xia Xingchen was anxious and racked his brains, but he couldn't think of any way to escape safely. Beep, beep. At this moment, the communicator suddenly rang, and Nia sent a message. Amanda was on the screen, wearing a white coat and looking nervous. Xia Xingchen. I have found 2 more crucial intelligences about the 1,000 brains. Xia Xingchen was silent. His biggest problem now was not the 1,000 brains, but Hellas, who was chasing him closely. However, Xia Xingchen still took a deep breath to calm down. Amanda, tell me, what is the intelligence? First, the 1,000 brains I found in George's cranial cavity is not an adult 1,000 brains, but a larva. Simply put, the adult 1,000 brains will not be much different from the nymph in appearance. However, the size is very different. According to my calculations, the adult 1,000 brains is extremely large, possibly more than 100 meters, or even 1,000 meters. Amanda said anxiously. His Xia Xingchen couldn't help but take a breath. What's the second intelligence? Xia Xingchen continued to ask. Second piece of information. The IQ of the 1,000 brain worms is very high, even higher than that of humans. Their adults are dormant in the underground of the lost world. A fierce fight is likely to wake them up. Then, a beam of light will appear underground. Amanda continued. I see. Xia Xingchen nodded slightly. Amanda's research results solved a puzzle in his mind. Before, Xia Xingchen's fierce battle with Snake awakened the 1,000 brain worms hiding underground. Amanda, Ptolemy, and George were also fighting with other mecha masters at the time. In other words, as long as the battle is intense enough, the 1,000 brain worms will wake up. Xia Xingchen's eyes lit up, and a bold idea emerged from his mind. Do you really want to do this? It's too dangerous. But now there is no other way. If I'm caught up by Hellas, I will definitely die. But now using this method, there is still a glimmer of hope. Xia Xingchen clenched his hands tightly and decided to take the risk. Swish. The Azure Dragon mecha suddenly dived down and landed on the ground. It folded its light wings behind it and looked up coldly at the 5 people from Hellas who were chasing after it. Whoosh. The 5 people from Hellas drove the mecha and instantly reached above the Azure Dragon mecha. The mecha had no intention of landing, but instead looked down from above and surrounded Xia Xingchen in the middle. Xia Xingchen, why don't you run away? Don't you like running away very much? It just so happens that I like the game of cat and mouse very much. Hellas smiled coldly and looked down at Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen did not answer. He waved his hand and took out the black tortoise mecha and the vermilion bad mecha from his personal space. He condensed his 2 spiritual clones and drove them on the mecha. His stubborn eyes swept across the faces of the 5 people from Hellas, and his fighting spirit was boiling. Xia Xingchen drove 3 sacred beast mechas alone, and no longer ran away. Instead, he wanted to fight to the death with the 5 people from Hellas. Good. You have guts. Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish. Hellas smiled coldly, turned to Guan Yu and the other 3 and said, don't make a move. Just stop this guy, and don't let him escape. I'll show you how I tortured this guy. Yes, sir. Guan Yu and the other 4 nodded quickly, their faces full of expectation. Although Hellas's strength was suppressed by the spatial laws of the lost world, and was only at the planetary level, he was a star-level powerhouse after all. Star-level powerhouses rarely make a move, but once they do, it must be earth-shattering. Come on, Hellas. It's time to put an end to our grudge. Xia Xingchen raised his head and roared at Hellas. In the hands of the three mechas of Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, three spiral spears of thunder, flame, and ice were condensed respectively. Boom. The three spiral spears stabbed out at the same time, and three dragons emerged from the tips of the spears. A blue thunder dragon, a red flame dragon, a white ice dragon. The three giant dragons of red, blue, and white gathered together, entangled and swirled, turning into a huge three-color spiral drill, and blasted towards Hellas with the power of creating the world. What a terrifying energy. Is he really a Nebula level? The power of this attack is too strong for even me. Xia Xingchen. He is indeed the most outstanding genius in the galaxy. This should be his trump card. Let's see how Hellas resolves it. Guan Yu and the other four suddenly changed their faces, and they were all terrified. Good. Hellas' pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip, and even he couldn't help but praise Xia Xingchen's full strength attack. I really didn't see this kid wrong. He's not an ordinary guy. If I can't get rid of him this time, when he grows up, I will definitely be the one to die. Hellas's face was boiling with murderous intent, and he slapped his hands suddenly, forming a special handprint in his hands, and shouted, "Split Sky Shield." Buzz. A monstrous mental force burst out from Hellas's body. At the same time, the Mecha's engine was turned on at full power, and the trident in his hand chopped vertically towards the space in front. Crack, crack, crack. Huge energy gushed out, and even the space could not bear it, and was torn apart. Large black marks appeared in the space that was originally empty. These marks became more and more densely superimposed together, and finally formed a huge shield. Boom. The three colored dragons gathered into a spiral drill head, which slammed fiercely on this black shield. Swish. In less than 10 seconds, the black shield was like a big mouth, and it actually swallowed the three colored dragon completely, leaving no residual energy. This Xia Xingchen was extremely shocked. He used his full strength to attack, which could temporarily avoid Hellas. However, Xia Xingchen still underestimated Hellas's strength. The gap between the nebula level and the star level is really too big. It's like heaven and earth. Xia Xingchen's heart sank, like a huge rock falling to the ground. Xia Xingchen, although you are very talented, you are still too young. Hellas laughed and swung the trident, leaving a large black mark in the space. A sharp space storm surged out from it, like a piece of black flying knives, cutting towards Xia Xingchen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1449, Cut in Half. Whoosh. The space storm was like a flying knife, extremely sharp, cutting towards Xia Xingchen. Xuanwu. Xia Xingchen shouted, and the Xuanwu mecha rushed forward with heavy steps, condensing a huge ice shield to resist Hellas's space. Swish, 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 swish. The space storm instantly passed through the body of the Xuanwu mecha. Bang. The Xuanwu ice shield exploded instantly, turning into countless ice crystals and scattering. The armor of the Xuanwu mecha was also penetrated by the space storm, riddled with holes and scars. Alert. Alert. The damage rate of the mecha exceeds 70%, and it has lost its combat capability. In the cockpit of the Xuanwu mecha, red lights flashed and alarms sounded. Boom. The huge body of the Xuanwu mecha could not support it, and it knelt on the ground with its knees. The energy lights flashing and its eyes went out, and it sank instantly. Xuanwu. Xia Xingchen's eyes were red, and he roared. The Xuanwu mecha is Xia Xingchen's most defensive mecha. However, under Hellas's attack, it couldn't even survive one move. Suzaku, let's go together. Xia Xingchen didn't hesitate at all. He put the severely damaged Xuanwu mecha back into the portable space, and drove the Qinglang mecha, and rushed towards Hellas together with the Suzuki mecha. Hellas's long-range attack was too terrifying. Xia Xingchen wanted to fight in close combat, relying on the high speed of the Qinglang and Suzuki mechas, as well as his martial arts talent. He forced Hellas to reveal his flaws. Boring. Hellas smiled contemptuously, and the mecha waved the trident in his hand, and swept it lightly. Bang. The Suzuki mecha was hit in the waist. Although it was energized in time to offset most of the impact force, it was still knocked back. Swish. With a simple blow, the Suzuki mecha was almost cut in half, severely damaged, and completely sunk. Almost in the blink of an eye, of Xia Xingchen's 3 sacred beast mechas, only the King Lang mecha driven by the main body was able to move. Hellas, Suzaku and Zuanwu were damaged one after another. Xia Xingchen was distressed and roared. Boom. The Azure Dragon mech rushed up recklessly and tangled with Hellas, and the thunder spear in his hand fell like raindrops. Yo. Very passionate. The fighting spirit is very high. But, can passion and fighting spirit make up for the gap in strength between the two of us? No. Hellas smiled contemptuously and easily resisted Xia Xingchen's crazy attack. Boom boom boom. Explosions rang out in the sky one after another, and mushroom clouds appeared beside the two. The dissipated energy turned into a hurricane and swung towards the periphery in circles. Foolish Captain Hellas is a famous martial arts master in the galaxy. Fighting him in close combat is simply courting death. What if we don't fight in close combat? The gap between the two is too big. Xia Xingchen can hold on until now, and Hellas deliberately lets him go, playing cat and mouse to humiliate him. Xia Xingchen, a well-known genius in the galaxy, is really going to fall today. Guan Yu and the other 4 watched from the side and whispered in surprise. In various places in the safe area of the Lost World, the Mecha Masters hiding in the hidden places were quietly paying attention to this area and watching the battle between Xia Xingchen and Hellas. Xia Xingchen is strong, but he is too young. He is no longer able to do it. Yes, Xia Xingchen must die. What should we do? Take the opportunity to attack Hellas? Impossible. We can't do it. Hellas is too scary. If we act rashly, he will kill us. Let's wait and see. Yes, I thought it was a fight between 2 tigers, and one of them would be injured. Unexpectedly, it was a one-sided crushing. Of course it was a crushing. Not to mention Xia Xingchen. With the strength shown by Hellas, he can crush any one of us. Is he really suppressed by the law, and has only planetary strength? If he is in his prime, how terrifying would he be? The Mecha Masters were secretly shocked. These small groups of Mecha Masters have different ideas. But there is one thing in common. They are unwilling to take action, expose themselves, and bear Hellas's wrath. In the eyes of all of them, Xia Xingchen is already a dead man. Amanda and Nia are hiding in the valley. Nia looked at the Mecha battle scene on the screen with a frown. The remaining safe area is not large, and the battle between Xia Xingchen and Hellas is so powerful that Nia is naturally alarmed. What should I do? Xia Xingchen is being targeted by Hellas. His situation is not good. Nia was anxious and turned around. Why are you asking me? I don't have a mecha. Amanda shrugged her shoulders. Xia Xingchen is a good guy. I also want to save him. But, can we do it? Yes. Can we do it? Nia sat down dejectedly, holding his head with both hands, with a painful expression. But, Xia Xingchen saved me twice. Oh, 3 times. No matter how many times, he is my savior. And I'm a complete coward. I watched my benefactor fall into trouble, but I was helpless. It's so lame. Forget it, Nia. Only a few people are heroes. You are not, and neither am I. Amanda sat next to Nia and persuaded him. No, I'm not a hero. But, I want to save him. I must save him. Nia stood up suddenly, clenched his fists, and looked at Amanda. I'm sorry, Amanda. I can't continue to protect you. I want to try. Even if it's just to be a hero for a minute. I don't want to be a coward anymore. Neo. You. Amanda looked at Nia in surprise. In her impression, Nia was not so mysterious as to be very cowardly. Whenever there was any disturbance, he would hide first. In the Alliance, except for the dead snake, no one had ever seen Nia take action. No one knew what Nia's superpowers were. I lost my mecha. Without your protection, I can't survive in the Lost World. I'll go with you. If we have to die, let's die together. Amanda showed a miserable smile on her face and stood up and said, okay. Nia took out a simple and exquisite brass pocket watch from his arms, took a look, clenched his right hand tightly, and whispered, time is on our side. Boom. The Azure Dragon mecha was hit by the trident, fell from the air, and hit the ground heavily. Puff. In the cockpit, Xia Xingchen was hit hard, spitting blood, and blood was all over the operating table. Without waiting for Xia Xingchen to stand up, Alice strode over and crushed the cockpit with one foot. Crack. The tempered glass of the cockpit shattered and was completely crushed. Ah. A piece of steel bar pierced through Xia Xingchen's right chest, just nailing him unable to move, and he let out a miserable howl. HMPH. Hellas looked down at Xia Xingchen's miserable appearance, his face full of cruel smiles, gently pointed, and said coldly, "Space blade." Swish. A half-moon shaped black space storm condensed and cut towards Xia Xingchen. Wow. The space blade cut down and cut Xia Xingchen in half, leaving only half of the whole person. Chapter 1450 Time stands still. It hurts. Xia Xingchen's body was cut in half, and he couldn't help but screaming as he watched his legs and waist fall into a pool of blood. The wound on his waist should have caused heavy bleeding, and he would have died of excessive blood loss in a short period of time. However, in this extremely unfavorable situation, Xia Xingchen's will was still tenacious, and he used his mental power to seal the wound, so that the blood and internal organs would not escape from the abdominal cavity. HMPH. Your body is already so broken, and you are still holding on. What's the use? You are just lingering on and suffering more in vain. Do you really think you have a chance to escape? Accept your fate. Xia Xingchen, you will definitely die in my hands today. Alice snorted coldly, with a look of disdain on his face, looking at Xia Xingchen with the eyes of a fool. Xia Xingchen no longer had the strength to speak, his face was as pale as paper, and a miserable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. There was really no way. The difference in strength was too great. Such a fierce battle did not even wake up the millipede sleeping underground. Xia Xingchen's original plan was also in vain. Boom. Boom. At this moment, the earth suddenly trembled, as if a major earthquake was about to occur. Finally woke up. But, it's too late. Xia Xingchen heard the rumbling of the earth, and knew that the millipede had woken up, and soon a huge beam of light would be ejected from the ground. Unfortunately, this time, the goddess of luck did not favor Xia Xingchen. Even if the millipede appeared to disrupt the situation, he did not have the strength to escape. What is it? Is it the millipede that Xia Xingchen mentioned? Hellas was stunned, his eyes filled with murderous intent, and he shouted decisively, "No matter what is hidden underground, send you to the west." Swish. Hellas waved his hand, and a dark space blade chopped towards Xia Xingchen's shattered body. The target of the space blade was Xia Xingchen's neck. If the head was chopped off, even with the current medical technology of mankind, it would be a fatal injury. Whoosh. The speed of the space blade was extremely fast, and it was in front of Xia Xingchen in an instant. The space blade in his pupil was getting closer and closer, like the sickle of the god of death, and was about to kill him. Tick 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 tick. Xia Xingchen's ears suddenly heard a strange sound, like the sound of the hands of an old-fashioned clock moving. Xia Xingchen was shocked to find that the space blade was less than 2 meters away from him, and it was actually stopped in midair. It's not just the space blade. Halis, Guan Yu, and the other 3 mecha masters. The flying stones in the air, the floating dust, the burning flames, and the scattered electric sparks. At this moment, they are like small insects solidified in amber, all still. It's as if at that moment, time has stopped. It's not as if. It's that time has really stopped. Xia Xingchen soon discovered the truth, and his face was full of astonishment. Whoosh. I saw a silver mecha flying down from above. It was covered with a special spiritual paint, which was the pattern of countless clocks, emitting a bright white light, and landed in front of Xia Xingchen. Near. Xia Xingchen was even more shocked when he saw that the mecha pilot in the cockpit was Nia. Xia Xingchen, we are here to save you. Nia was sweating profusely, holding a bronze pocket watch tightly in his hand. He said to Amanda, who was also shocked, "Go and save Xia Xingchen. My time domain can't be maintained for too long." Time domain. Amanda's body was shocked. Your ability is such a rare time ability. I guess there is no one else in the whole galaxy. No wonder your combat power is not strong, but you are the captain of the top 10 teams in the alliance. Time ability. Too rare, too powerful. Amanda knew that it was not the time to be shocked. She reacted quickly. Her slender and agile figure jumped out of the cockpit, hugged Xia Xingchen's body, and carried him back to Nia's mecha. Xia Xingchen used his last strength to retract the Qinglang mecha into space. Due to pain and blood loss, he fell into a state of shock. Xia Xingchen, hold on. Amanda took out a bottle of light blue potion, pried open Xia Xingchen's teeth without saying anything, and poured the potion into his mouth. Healing field. At the same time, Amanda shouted, and countless green lights emerged from her body, converging on Xia Xingchen's body. Xia Xingchen's injury has been controlled. Let's escape immediately. Amanda turned and shouted to Nia. I know Nia was already sweating profusely. Although the time power is an extremely powerful power, the consumption of mental power is also very terrifying. 99% of Nia's mental power is used to maintain time stop, and it is very difficult for his time mecha to take a step forward. However, Nia still controlled the mecha, and walked out step by step. No, I can't hold on. Nia's mental power is not vast among the same level, and it is even more incomparable to Xia Xingchen. Before the time mecha escaped from Helis's sight, Nia's mental power was completely exhausted. Tick-tock. The delicate hands on the old brass pocket watch moved forward one tick. Time resumed. Boom. The space blade landed, cutting a deep crescent-shaped mark on the ground. Missed. Helis was stunned. In his perception, Xia Xingchen and the Azure Dragon mecha disappeared out of thin air. Teleport? Or thought came to Helis' mind, and he quickly shook his head to deny it. Helis himself is a space power user, and regardless of whether Xia Xingchen, who only has half of his body left, still has the power to teleport and escape. The spatial fluctuations generated by teleportation alone cannot hide from his perception. Using teleportation in front of Helis is simply showing off in front of Guangong. Ah, Xia Xingchen suddenly disappeared? What happened? He was clearly there just now. Is he hiding in stealth? Or is he an illusion? The other mecha masters watching the battle also discovered this strange situation. Why is there an extra mecha? Helis soon discovered that there was a strange silver-white mecha at the edge of the battlefield less than 10,000 meters away from him. He was sure that this mecha appeared out of nowhere, and it must not have existed just now. Moreover, Xia Xingchen's weak mental fluctuations were transmitted from the mecha. Xia Xingchen is on that mecha. He hasn't escaped far. Helis raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a cruel smile. I don't care how you escaped there. I don't care who saved you, or what method they used. You all will die. Whoosh. Helis shouted in a low voice, and was already driving the mecha, flying towards the direction of the time mecha. Ah. Nia was completely frightened. He was not a mecha master who was good at fighting. What's more, Nia's mental power had been completely exhausted, and he had no ability to fight back at all, like a lamb to be slaughtered. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.